Okay, we're ready. Good evening and welcome to the monthly board meeting of the Dallas Independent School District Board of Trustees. Please stand and join us for a moment of silence and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the Texas flag. Thank you. Trustees present, starting on your left and my right, are Trustee Audrey Pinkerton, Trustee Lou Blackburn, Trustee Joyce Foreman, Trustee Dan Mitchkay, Trustee Justin Henry, Trustee Miguel Solis, Trustee Jaime Resendez. Trustee Dustin Marshall will participate in the board meeting via video conference from the Breakers Hotel, 1 South County Road, Palm Beach, Florida, 33480. We're joined by our Superintendent of Schools, Michael Hinojosa, and I am Edwin Flores, Board President. Trustee Resendez, you'd like to do the honors?
Si hay alguien que necesita los servicios de un intérprete, por favor levanten la mano y les pueden ayudar aquí a la mano izquierda mía.
Thank you. Trustees, at this time, I would like to recognize any elected or public officials. I do know that Councilmember Philip Kingston is here. Trustees, do you see any other current or former elected officials that we may recognize? Oh, Mavis Knight. Somebody tells me, and Harriet Earhart, Dr. Harriet Earhart, former Dallas ISD trustee. Are we missing?
Mavis Knight.
I did mention Mavis Knight, former member of the Board of Education. Anybody else? We thank you all for being here. Trustees, there are no recognitions tonight. We have a gaggle of really expensive lawyers here tonight to visit with us about a closed session item. If there are no objections, I'd like to move the closed section item forward so that we may meet with them and ask them to move forward. Trustees, so we have an objection. Trustees, if there's an objection, then we have a vote. Trustees, we have an objection. Do we want to just go ahead with the speakers? Okay, we will move ahead with the speakers. Trustees, our agenda now calls for the public forum and segment of our meeting. We'll begin with the speakers to agenda items, followed by speakers to non-agenda items. To ensure that this meeting is held in an orderly manner, I am asking all speakers to please refrain from using individual names and to address the board and not individual trustees. Ms. Gully, will you call the names of the speakers?
Yes. Speakers, you will have 3 minutes to speak. When you arrive at the microphone, please state your name and address. Our first speaker is Marvin Delaney, followed by Robert Edison.
Emphasize and promote the curriculum of inclusion. That is, the history of all Americans should be in the American history course. But I'll tell you, as a young person growing up in Alliance, Ohio, I didn't learn about one African or African American or Mexican American in all of the history courses that I took in 12 years of education. So I want to encourage the board to take a look at 8.35 and the documentation for that, because I think it's very important that we promote the curriculum of inclusion that includes African Americans, Mexican Americans, Native Americans, and all of the people who make up our country. Thank you.
Robert Edison, followed by Vicky Meek.
Yes, my name is Robert Edison. I reside at 315 North Meadow Lane. And I'm here also to talk about the African American history course. In 1933, John Leslie Patton and H.I. Holland wrote the first curriculum of African American history for the state of Texas. That curriculum was adopted by the state. In 1939, Booker T. Washington High School became the first school in Texas to offer a course in African American history. That Negro history course later became Black Studies. What I'd like to do is just go over what they stated when they wrote the course, and I'm going to use the terminology of the 1930s. The course in Negro history was intended to serve the following purpose: to give Negro youth a better understanding of the struggles and problems which the Negro race has encountered in America, to give a greater appreciation of the progress and contributions which the Negro has achieved, to show that the Negro has formed an integral part of the American civilization, to awaken a proper social consciousness and pride in the developments and the achievements of African Americans. Those issues are still true today. In 1985, in an effort to reduce the number of course offerings, African American history was dropped, and an ethnic studies course, American Cultural Studies, was created. That course was eventually dropped as well, and now you have advanced studies and special topics courses. But it's very difficult to offer a course that does not exist. Does not exist on the state level, there's no course number for it, does not exist on the local level, there's no course number for it. The only way that we can rectify this and make it easy for schools to offer these courses that are in demand by students of all ethnic groups is to make sure that that course is listed as a state-approved course and a district-approved course. And it starts here. We must get it approved first on this level before we go to the state and fight to have it approved on that level. I'm representing the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, and our founder, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, said that in reality, there's no such thing as Negro history. Negro history is a missing part of American history, and no one can truly know American history without knowing the contributions and achievements of African people in this country. One final point. This year marks the 400th commemoration of 1619, when the first group of Africans were brought to the New World, to the English colonies. And for our students to really have an appreciation of that event, we need to have a course for them to study. Thank you.
Vicky Meek, followed by David King.
Hi, I'm Vicky Meek, and I live at 705 Lowell Street, Dallas. In my former life as manager of the South Dallas Cultural Center, I designed an education program that taught students K-12 African American history with the arts as the vehicle for exploring that history. I was blessed to have grown up in a household where my history and culture were on full display via the books of my parents' libraries and the art on the walls. I was raised by what back in the day were called race people, the definition being people who were fiercely proud of their African heritage. They had to self-educate, however, on the topic because no such area of study existed prior to the 1960s. They made sure that me and my siblings were firmly grounded in our history, and that grounding allowed me to imagine myself as an artist in 1958, when no Black women artists appeared in my school textbooks. I know we've all heard the saying that knowledge is power. Well, I'd like to extend that to say knowledge is empowering, because I've watched for a couple of decades South Dallas Cultural Center students who've gained a stronger sense of self that translated into a desire for excellence in all that they endeavored. When children have a sense of pride in their culture, they rarely need outside motivation to succeed in their academic lives or later as they go out in the world as adults. I urge you to adopt this, to approve this application for the African American Studies curriculum as a positive first step towards acknowledging that the history and culture of all DISD students has equal importance. I'd like to end with a proverb from the Yoruba people that says, "A man in touch with his origins is a man who never dies."
David King, followed by Okwete Tahimba.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent. My name is David King, address 2318 East Keys Boulevard. I would just like to speak to the issue of the addition of African American studies from the perspective of a student. I still remember being a student. And for me, you know, I very much remember the emotional impact that going through the process of reviewing history, learning history in school without seeing evidence of myself, my family, or my own history had on me. And, you know, case in point, as a process of finding out about myself, my own history, I had to detour away from the educational process, the formal educational process that I was involved in, instead of being able to embrace it, because I could not find the truth I was looking for there. I had to search elsewhere for the truth. I think that we owe it to our children to ensure that in their search for the truth, they can embrace the formal educational process that they're going through. But in order to do that, that formal educational process has to recognize them, their place, and the place of their forebears. That's why it's critical to make sure that African American studies is included, not just for African American students, but for everybody. Because, you know, just in accordance with the wisdom that we've already heard, African American history is American history. African history is world history. And we do ourselves a disservice when we do not embrace the entirety of the history that makes up the human fabric. So I encourage the board, firstly, I commend you in making sure that this was an agenda item in the first place. I encourage you to vote for it and to ensure that this extremely important process is included in the curriculum for all our children.
Okwete Tahimba, followed by Lucy Houston.
Good evening. I'm Okwete Tahimba, and I'm a citizen of District 3. And I am also the owner of the Pan-African Connection Bookstore, Art Gallery, and Resource Center here in Dallas, where we think history is the basis for all things, history and culture. I mean, we realize that all people have a history and have a culture that they can be proud of, but a lot of people don't know that history and culture. So we are encouraging you to adopt this African American curriculum because we feel it can change a child's life. It can give them confidence where they may not have any. It can have them appreciate other cultures. And overall, it will help them want humanity to come together as a whole. So, thank you.
Lucy Houston, followed by Harry Robertson Jr.
Good evening, I'm Lucy Houston, 8324 Bunk Garden Drive, Dallas, Texas. I'm coming to you as an educator, a doctoral candidate at Texas A&M University, talk to you a little bit about the theories and philosophies behind adopting this curriculum from an educational perspective. I'm also a retired teacher. I taught at Fraser during its heyday, from ground zero until almost the school was closed. So, the Pan-African Connection Resource Center and Art Gallery, Okwete Tahimba just spoke to you. The community and affiliates support the Racial Equity Office request to approve the innovative course application for an African American Studies course during the 2019-2020 school year. As an institution that has provided the community with access to authentic African American literature, lectures, art, and artifacts, for educators, parents, and community leaders, we understand the value of an African American Studies course. Research by Albert Bandura, Stanford University, has informed us that self-efficacy develops through vicarious learning or observing the success of others like yourself. Studies on learned helplessness by Brown and others have revealed that the failure of others like oneself has an adverse impact on self-efficacy. Cameron McCarthy has urged institutions to move beyond multiculturalism that merely develops cultural understanding by engaging students in activities that simply identify characteristics of different cultural groups. We should embrace cultural competence that builds bridges between home and school. Finally, McCarthy would have school districts to implement multicultural curriculum that is emancipatory, one that links, quote, one that links the issue of minority underachieving in the classroom to the attitudinal prejudice of teachers and the suppression of minority culture in the school curriculum, unquote. Latson Billings' study of successful teachers of African American children found that children are more engaged and successful when cultural reference are used to teach the standards. E.D. Hurst and others would have us to believe that cultural pluralism is divisive. However, an African American Studies course would provide the counter-indoctrination that has resulted from centuries of misrepresentation and underrepresentation of African Americans in the curriculum. Pinar and Castanel, curriculum theorists, have pointed out that, quote, just as African Americans have been denied their civil rights and social society generally.
Thank you, Ms. Houston. Your time has expired. Harry Robinson Jr., followed by Rena Honey.
My name is Harry Robinson Jr. I live at 2424 South Boulevard, 75215. I'm President and CEO of the African American Museum. For the last couple of minutes, I have sat struggling, trying to write something to say. Dr. Delaney and Robert Edison stole my notes. And said just about everything I was going to say. However, I would like to tell you that I'm encouraged and I'm inspired that you are considering, and I hope will include this course in the curriculum, which will be a step in the right direction of finally making African American history whole, because the African American experience is indeed an integral part of the American story. How can we truly say we're teaching American history when the struggles, achievement, and triumph of this population is not recognized for its contribution to the building of this country? The African American Museum is a custodian of this legacy, and we stand ready to partner with the Dallas Independent School District to provide resources and experiences that will complement the formal instruction in the classroom. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Rena Honey.
Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
Good evening, President Flores, trustees, and Superintendent Hinojosa. I'm Rena Honey, President of Alliance AFT, Local 2260, 334 Center Street in Dallas. I too am speaking about the African American Studies program that's being proposed tonight, but in just a tiny bit different way than the previous speakers. The problem of race in America has been a divisive, negative issue for centuries. Frederick Douglass gave a speech in 1870 stating that America would not reach its full potential as a great nation until the race problem was resolved. Nearly 150 years later, we're still asking a question posed then: how do we resolve the issue of race in America? The newly formed Department of Racial Equity has brought forward a recommendation that will, in my opinion, put Dallas ISD on the path to answering Dr. Douglas's question. offering a course in African American Studies where students can learn about the history and culture of their own families, their friends' families, and others, is an offering that is definitely long overdue. Education leads to acceptance and tolerance. Ignorance only leads to fear and exclusion. There seems to be way too much fear and exclusion in our world today, and our educators experience it daily in the behaviors of students in our classrooms. Although this will be an elective course, those enrolling will hopefully begin to find and understand their own identities as well as those of their friends. It can open the door of communication with others that could, in turn, begin a beneficial dialogue on the issue of race. Thank you for developing the Racial Equity Department in Dallas ISD and to the team for bringing this course forward. This is the beginning of what I hope will become a required course, along with other ethnic studies courses that begins in the elementaries and continues through the high schools. Fred Douglass is quoted as saying, "It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." I believe that providing this course and other ethnic studies courses sets the district apart, or sets the district on a path of building strong-minded, well-adjusted, and children who will grow into strong-minded, well-adjusted, and accepting adults. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to share these thoughts with you this evening.
Mr. President, in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order, can I have a point of personal privilege?
Yes, trustee.
So, yeah, it won't be long. We're going to discuss this later, but if you spoke on this agenda item, could you please stand if you don't mind? For those, there's a lot of people. First, I want to say I love this city. I love the city of Dallas. I love DISD. I think public schools are the foundation of our future. There's more people in this room than we've had in a long time in regards to school board meetings and briefings. This is probably even more than a TRE vote. But as we look around and who spoke on this agenda item, we have work to do, in my opinion. Racial equity is incredibly important, making sure that all of our kids are included, both in the academic achievement, both the opportunities that Ms. Foreman was talking about earlier, getting a tag school down in her district. So, you know, my heart is heavy because I'm so thankful that you all came to speak, and we've gotten emails about this as well. But there's also a bit of tension and disappointment that we don't have more folks. And if you look at the room, there's a commonality amongst the people that are standing, minus Ms. Nahomie and the AFT staff. But there's a very commonality among the people that came before our board to speak on this issue in a room full of citizens of Dallas, Texas. From my perspective, representing the district that I represent and the history that my community has, I would expect more folks to be as passionate as you all are about this issue of racial equity. I mean, this is a phenomenal deal, in my opinion. I'll talk about it later. But I have to sit in this room with so many people from so many parts of our city that are going to speak on another agenda item and challenge us why we aren't as passionate about this issue of racial equity. And I'm going to leave it at that. We're going to discuss it earlier, but the academics in our district, our English students perform at the highest level. Our Latinos are next. Our English language learners are next. And at the bottom are our African American students. We should be more urgent around that idea. So thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the opportunity to interject. I wanted to make sure everyone in this room heard this before you leave and go your separate ways and we get late into the night. Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. We talked yesterday that you're speaking on this agenda item, and I'll shut up now. But thank you.
Trustee Henry, I completely agree with you, and I'm going to call you out of order. May we continue with the speakers?
Deneen Henderson.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. My name is Deneen Williams Henderson. I reside at 2106 Garden Crest Lane, Dallas, Texas. I am here to add to the conversation about the great things happening in our libraries on behalf of the Dallas Area School Librarians Organization. I currently serve as the Library Media Specialist at Roosevelt High School and H-Tech Collegiate Academy in my 8th year as a school librarian. I am passionate about connecting students to opportunities for knowledge and skill acquisition because of the immense positive impact when they succeed and the tragic consequences when they do not. I use the Library Media Center to reach young people in a unique manner. I will share some of the varied library learning activities that have taken place in the library this year to engage students and encourage teachers to embrace the efficacy of library programming. Librarians are naturally able to locate and match resources to deepen a student's understanding. I take it a step further with a Lunch and Learn speaker series whereby featured guests or organizations present relevant information to students while they eat lunch in the library. Participants can interact with speakers and leave with treats, including a curated bibliography of resources on the topic in our high school library collection, thus promoting the circulation of materials. Many teachers on campus have also supported the effort with extra credit for participants. Our last Lunch and Learn was held in observance of Veterans Day and highlighted the Navy. A Healthy Relationships Lunch and Learn is planned for the next month around Valentine's Day. The Roosevelt High School Library features a modest computer lab. Last month, we hosted 2 Hour of Code sessions to promote coding as a high-demand cyber economy STEM career open to all. Personally, as an Hour of Code early adopter, it thrills me to provide this introductory opportunity for students to learn computer science principles through everything from basic, unplugged to challenging online game design activities that are engaging. This week, we tested augmented reality apps, robotic cubes, and circuitry sets in hopes of launching makerspace activities soon. Over the years, Specialized Library Program has enriched my life. It is interesting to note that the first time I used a computer was in the Library Media Center at Bertie Alexander Elementary School here in Dallas ISD. That initial encounter ignited a passion that sustained me through the computer science cluster at Skyline High School, my university studies, and numerous other educational and professional endeavors since then to my present career in service to young people. Special thanks to the Roosevelt High School administration team for their enthusiastic support. Thank you for your attention and ensuring the positive impact of libraries in our district every day, and happy School Board Recognition Month.
R. Jean Jackson is not speaking, and E. Lana Malone is not speaking. The next speaker is Lydia Wright, followed by Zechariah Manning.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Lydia Wright, and I live at 5347 Miller Avenue. I'm speaking about the long-range plan for Woodrow Wilson feeder pattern, why I choose Geneva Heights. Gemstones, they lay hidden in rocks, under rivers, down in deep caves. Covered by sediment, mud, darkness, their beauty is not recognizable at first, even though it's there. It takes discovery and hard work to release the gemstone and then clean it up so its rarity and beauty are seen by all. Geneva Heights is a gem. This school has been long overlooked by our feeder pattern, even though teachers and students were there working hard and finding success. Parents and staff were quieter about their school pride. Maybe they liked it being a secret. I'm not sure. But we now want it known that Geneva Heights has been discovered for the gem of a neighborhood elementary IB school that it is. This is why I choose Geneva Heights. My name is Lydia Wright, and I worked for DISD for 15 years as a special education teacher and school counselor. The majority of my career was at Lakewood Elementary. My work there gives me pride and firsthand experience with the way a school can build community, teachers can be dedicated, and great success can be achieved for students. I want that for my children and family. But my family made a choice after having our first child that I would leave my career at Lakewood and the opportunity for our children to attend there because we chose Geneva Heights for our elementary. I very much believe in Geneva Heights as a community rallies around our IB Choice Elementary School. I'm the president of our early childhood group, Pre-Geneva Association, which we began to build community, increase awareness about Geneva Heights for young families, and support the school with fundraising. We formed in 2016 with 31 families, and in 2018, we had 145 member families. We have helped fund field trips for 4th grade levels this year with our initial fundraising efforts, and just 2 weeks ago, we raised over $25,000 for Geneva Heights with an auction party, which 200 parents and community members attended. Pre-Geneva includes nearly 300 parents and 230 kids. These are families who are seeking out ways to be part of our neighborhood DISD school, voting for the TRE and the bond programs, paying attention, and ready to support Geneva Heights and our feeder pattern. We do not want to be turned into a 5-6 campus and lose the community momentum we have proven we can create for our DISD IB Choice Elementary School. Our feeder may need a 5-6 campus, but not at the cost of closing Geneva Heights Elementary. Our community needs assurance this won't happen. This is the only way to keep our support for Geneva Heights going with families enrolling and continued fundraising efforts for school. Our teachers and staff are also very invested in our school. They need to have stability or we risk losing them to other job opportunities. The longer this is in limbo, the more it hurts this progress. I believe in the current growth Geneva Heights has shown in test scores. in particular lower grade test scores and enrollment, growing by 100 students and 25% in 2 years. Our school needs to stay a diverse neighborhood elementary school because Geneva Heights is a gem for DISD that is only starting to be discovered and embraced. I choose Geneva Heights. And I hope you will check out your handout we gave you and enjoy your cookie. Thank you.
Zachariah Manning, followed by Diane Birdwell.
Board members, you should have a white or black binder in front of you. My name is Zachariah Manning. I'm a former Dallas ISD capital improvement construction manager. I was terminated from the district in December 2016 for reporting missions of taxpayer money, sequential purchases, and reporting of the districts denying minority and women-owned businesses the equal opportunity to participate in aspects of contracting and purchasing. Schemes were orchestrated by my former executive director, Willie Burrows, and my former director, Sylvia Pena, and others to circumvent, mislead, and non-disclose information to this board. Once I started raising concerns, Burrows and Pena began implying my work performance was not acceptable. I ultimately emailed Superintendent of Schools, Michael Hinojosa, about what was going on. Retaliation continued against me, and then I was terminated. I filed a grievance level 2 against Burrows and Pena, and my grievance hearing officer was Willie Burrows. DGBA regulations state a hearing officer who has a conflict of interest will disqualify himself or herself and be excused. Due to the manipulation of grievance level 2, an unfavorable grievance level 3 decision was made against me. Dallas ISD own investigator Andrea Whalen reported that I made legitimate complaints, and she believed I was terminated for said complaints in her undisclosed report. Whalen has been rehired or currently in settlement talks in order to silence her. I believe that outside counsel Kip Mandrigo report concludes that I was correct as well. I urge the board to make both reports available. For the record, my concerns were emailed to Kip Mandrigo back in 2017. Today, construction is going on at Hillcrest High School that includes demolition of various roof sections that I oversaw replacement of in 2016 that cost taxpayers $483,350 and just below the $500 amount required to come before this board. I am asking this board to reconsider my employment and/or equitable solution concerning my previous employment. A quote from the TEA. Student outcomes don't change until adult behaviors change. Board members, today is a new dawning of change. Let it start with you. Thank you.
Diane Birdwell, followed by Joanna Kavanagh.
Hello, everybody. I'm Diane Birdwell, as you well know, 5705 Meadowick, just down the street. I'm back. In November, I spoke to you about how we have not heard about any changes in the ratios of students to counselors, to monitors, or reduction in class sizes. You know, what they went on strike for in LA. After 20 years in DISD, I guess I'm not surprised that what's important to campus personnel and for parents and teachers is not important to those in the big tower at 9400. I heard from only 3 of the 9 trustees about this, and once they heard about it down at 9400 that I was going to be interviewed by Channel 8, guess what? Somebody called my boss, the principal. That's a rookie mistake. Call me if you want. The 5 top staffers, including the superintendent of this district, know who I am. I've been around forever. I'm loud. You can find me easily. Just listen. They could have visited with me at the campus, or they could have called me in, but they instead went some way, a different way. Dr. Tuckey never would have done that. Barbara Thomas never would have done that. Mr. Edison would never have done that. Ward English would never have done that. So if the budget comes through without changes to the ratios, It doesn't matter if your school is open or closed because we won't have enough security. We'll have too many kids for the counselors. It won't matter that we'll have a Black history class because no one will know to fill it because they need it for all the other teachers, for all the other classes. This is the issue at hand. Do we change the money? You ask about partnerships with Commit and SMU, and we'll get extra money. No, they'll get extra money. It won't go to the students, it'll go to counselors, the consultants. We need money in the classroom, and I expect the budget to change. Or I will make sure that during city council, mayor races, and trustee races, I will make this an issue because you shouldn't be running for politics in Dallas if you're not going to take care of our students, whether you're running for trustee, for mayor, or for city council. I hope I've made myself quite clear on this. Thank you.
Joanna Catanach, followed by Millie Dominich.
Good evening, board members and trustees. I'm so happy to be in front of you today. My name is Joanna Catanach. I reside at 6108 Palo Pinto Avenue. In front of you, in addition to your cookie, is a fact sheet about my school, Geneva Heights Elementary. This week is an interesting week. This is called School Choice Week, and a lot of people have been hooping and hollering in front of the Capitol in Austin with little yellow scarves talking about the importance of charter schools, but I wanted to talk about the importance of choice. I choose a neighborhood elementary school in East Dallas called Geneva Heights. I choose this for a lot of different reasons. I choose to move my family here. I choose this school because my son's first grade teacher has 30 years of experience in DISD. I choose this school for the reasons that you see in front of you. $100,000 was donated by people from Project Refresh to help supply our science lab. $43,000 has been supplied by the East Dallas Exchange Club. $25,000, as you have heard, has been supplied by Pre-Geneva as well. But a fact that you don't hear or see on that piece of paper is the amount of money that I've had to spend as the mother of a student who has special education needs. $2,500 is the amount of money I had to spend for additional testing because my son has autism. If we want to talk about equity, it's not just racial equity. It is equity for students like mine who have special education needs. My son, every year, sits through an ARD meeting. That's what I have to do as a parent. I don't get to make cookies for my son. I've had to sit through ARD meetings since he was 4. He is 7 now. This is what I do as a parent because I invest in my son's school and because I have found a school and a principal and a Pre-Geneva association and parents who I can say, this is what I'm dealing with. How do I do this? What can we do together? You know, we do have a gem at Geneva Heights Elementary. It is the product of DISD success. You have a school people want to go to. You have a neighborhood people want to move to. We have a school that has 60% minority population. As a family who is a minority, I have 2 choices: to move to Lakewood, where there is almost no minority population, or to go to an overcrowded school at Mockingbird. My son, because he has special education services, benefits from a classroom that has only 16 students. Most importantly, he benefits from what's going to happen this Saturday, a birthday party. And for the first time, he's making friends. For a student like mine that gets pulled out for special education services, who gets tutoring twice a week by his teacher who stays late for that, this is a gem because no charter school will accept him. No private school will accept him. So I'm asking you to eat that cookie and remember, Geneva Heights is a gem. Thanks so much.
Millie Dominich, followed by Courtney McAllister.
Good evening. My name is Millie Dominich, and I reside at 5750 East University Boulevard here in Dallas. I'm here to talk to you about the long-range facilities plan for our school, Geneva Heights Elementary IB World School, where my first grader is in the dual language curriculum program. I'm asking that you take off of the table any option that would eliminate Geneva Heights as a neighborhood elementary school. Instead of trying to change Geneva Heights, we believe that DISD should be looking at our school and talking to our staff and talking to the parents to determine how DISD can replicate what we're doing in our school to other neighborhood schools. Our enrollment has increased by almost 100 students in 2 years at a time where enrollment is decreasing in most other DISD elementary schools. We have a dual language curriculum and an IB curriculum that is very popular and attracts families and students from all over the district. We have students from Mockingbird Zone, we have students from Lakewood, other areas of the district. We have students coming in from private schools. In fact, 31% of our incoming students come from outside of DISD, which is higher than all of the other elementary schools in our feeder pattern. In 2018, 100% of our fifth graders met standards in math and 89% in reading, which represents a double-digit increase over the previous year. In 2018, we logged over 2,500 volunteer hours, which is pretty amazing when you consider how relatively small our school is. People who live in the neighborhood routinely every month come into the school asking to volunteer because they want to volunteer at their neighborhood school. Over the course of the last couple of years, our daily attendance has increased, the number of requests for tours has increased, and our library circulation numbers are higher than some elementary schools with a couple of hundred more students than we have. So our children love to read. We have a great librarian in Ms. Brown. Our school is diverse both in terms of social economic status and in terms of race and ethnicity, and this has been grown organically, whereas DISD has been trying to do this through choice schools. We've done it organically at our school. The staff at Geneva Heights and the district have spent a great deal of money and time to get our IB certification. It takes a minimum of 3 years to be certified. And I don't think that a lot of people in the administration recognize how much time and how much money was spent on getting the certification and how much time and money was spent on getting our teachers trained. In closing, I respectfully request that rather than waiting several months and keeping everybody in the community in limbo about the status of our school, we ask that you immediately remove from consideration any option in this long-range plan that would eliminate Geneva Heights as that would close it as a neighborhood school. We want to keep Geneva Heights neighborhood elementary school. Thank you.
Courtney McAllister, followed by Steve Swanson.
Hi, I'm Courtney McAllister. I reside at 5914 Monticello Avenue. I have a 3- and 5-year-old that will be Geneva Heights Cougars. My family and I moved to Dallas last February from Bentonville, Arkansas, where we had highly overfunded, 10 out of 10 ranked wonderful public school systems. So one would think that we would look for the same type of school here. In fact, when we decided upon the East Dallas area, our realtor dissuaded us from a home in Geneva Heights because of the outsider reputation. But let me tell you, Geneva is a gem, and it isn't what it seems on paper. This is a community that builds from the bottom up. Let me illustrate how that differs from schools that simply fundraise and build from the top down. Geneva is welcoming to everyone in its community, not just the select elite. This is evident in the small grassroots activities, events, playdates, and programs that Pre-Geneva has organized and built directly. We have monthly Mom's Night Out and quarterly Dad Night Out events where parents have opportunities to connect and build relationships. Did you know that Geneva Heights is home to 30+ children who live in a neighboring transitional housing program? Pre-Geneva was instrumental in setting up the Woodrow Peace Pantry on campus. These children and others who are food insecure take home backpacks filled with food every Friday. What pre-elementary group do you know of is this involved in community development, fundraising, and taking care of other children in the community? I will point out that these highly motivated pre-Geneva families will be the ones affected by a school shutdown or merger. I visited 8 different elementary schools when we first moved to Dallas to find the best fit for our family. Ironically, the school that was technically ranked lowest is the only school that hit all of the items on my checklist. A neighborhood elementary school, socioeconomic and racial diversity, a dual language program that is accessible, small class sizes, project-based learning, strong parent community, strong respected leadership at the school level. Yes, Geneva doesn't have the highest test scores, but that is quickly changing. This neighborhood school will be a success story. With the community support that has rallied behind Geneva Heights within the last 2 to 3 years and the fact that we are now an IB World School, we are headed in the right direction. On a personal note, I do think that a 5th and 6th grade school is a good option for the feeder pattern, but just not at the detriment of our gem in our neighborhood. I would ask the board to take a hard look at another property that could solve the overcrowding problems at Mockingbird, Lakewood, and Long. There has to be another property that would be better suited to serve the needs of these potential 1,000+ 5th and 6th graders. Geneva Heights is my choice school, my neighborhood school, and my children's future. I choose Geneva and I ask for your support to quickly bring forth a new plan where Geneva Heights remains a neighborhood elementary school. Please put our community's minds at ease and allow us to continue this high velocity momentum that will surely fizzle out if our neighborhood elementary school is closed or even if it takes
Thank
too long
you,
to
Ms.
make a decision.
McAllister.
Thank you.
Steve Swanson, followed by Stephen King.
Good evening, Steve Swanson, 5000 Mission Oaks Boulevard, Austin, Texas. A grandparent, a retired business executive, and 20-year volunteer in public education, including schools that have been rated IR. Done research on Texas governance of education, and I've been a guest lecturer on governance management for university students studying to become a superintendent, and I've learned a lot. Please know we already have partners. Existing partners for students and taxpayers include the commissioner and the superintendent. The question is are they good partners? Unfortunately, they are not, because they have not fulfilled their responsibilities for administering education as provided for in Texas law and district policies, laws that have existed for decades. This is revealed by the existence of new policies for partnerships, the Department of Education investigating special education and awful school funding system, as well as TEI and ACE in the stories we've heard tonight. This is an opportunity for the superintendent to demonstrate responsibility. Stop the creation of new policies until existing policies are known and used. Report to the board and the public the lawful responsibilities of the Texas superintendent and commissioner of education for serving and saving, not harming children, for working together, partnering to effectively use community resources and serving needs of children. And a report, and in this report, describe a plan to start fulfilling these responsibilities. For the superintendent, boards, and public's use, we are providing the Texas Administrative Code standards for a superintendent and portions of the Texas Education Code providing for the responsibilities of the commissioner, Texas Education Agency, and superintendents. And we look forward to your questions, and please don't hesitate to ask. And tonight I must add that one of the reasons I stand here, there's several, but one of them is the people of Kendleton, Texas, a little farm community in South Fort Bend County. It was closed, their school district was closed, and I was invited by their superintendent to come visit with them. I met history of the African American. I met the people who were the descendants of those who in 1950 stood up for their right to vote, eventually went to and became a Supreme Court decision in their favor, and eventually ignited, helped ignite what we now refer to as the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Not only is African American history is important, I've learned to value being with people who know what that history felt like, and it's encouraged me.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Your time has expired. Stephen King, followed by Mavis Knight.
Hello, board, members of the board. My name is Stephen King, 1531 Georgia, 75216. For the first time, I'm up here not to gripe or bark at you, but to thank you guys, to thank you for the job that you've been doing. I've been with the school, parent of students for over 25 years, from No Child Left Behind in 2001 to School to Prison Pipeline in 2012. And I have seen the growth that you guys are doing. And I want to thank you, especially Blackburn. You're doing a wonderful job, and we just thank you at our window homes for the cows that you allowed us to have to help our children be as educated as other schools that might be more influential. We just thank all of you guys and ask you to keep up the good work. Thank you.
Mavis Knight, followed by Lori Kirkpatrick.
Mavis Knight, 6108 Redbird Court, Dallas, Texas, 75232. Thank you. This is a negative visceral reaction to the proposed local ELA policy under consideration. Please take these comments, and if you must move forward, refine the proposed policy. Reaction 1, ELA local reads like the district administrators have imposed a vote of no confidence on their ability to move this district forward. This is not true as evidenced by your partnerships that currently exist and your innovative programs, as well as the evidence that you are narrowing the achievement gap, that you have a B rating from the Texas Education Agency. Believe in yourself and your leadership skills. Reaction 2, has the district's local control policy changed? On the surface, it looks like you're relinquishing your authority to propose private entities and the Texas Education Agency. Look carefully at the authority granted to the Commissioner of Education under Senate Bill 1882. Carefully review the authority given to the proposed private entities who will manage the campuses and/or programs. Take another look at their independent governance structure. Protect the districts, especially the students and the parents, in your performance contract. Reaction 3, this proposed policy reads like creating districts within a district. Is this the beginning of dissembling the Dallas Independent School District? What is the target number of privately operated districts? Take a lesson from the charter school movement. It began as a pilot program, and before the research was in that documented the effectiveness of the charters, those charters expanded, and now we have a proliferation of charter schools. Get your predetermined targets ready for the number of proposed partnerships. Proactively identify the number of privately operated campuses and our programs so that you won't let the number of campuses multiply out of control. Funding. Minimize your dependence on iffy state.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. Your time has expired. Lori Kirkpatrick, followed by Melissa Kingston.
Good evening, Lori Kirkpatrick. I reside at 6705 Brayburn in Dallas, Texas, 75214. Good evening, Superintendent, President, and board members. I'm speaking about the proposed charter partnership. As stated on the Texas Association of School Boards website regarding local school boards, this crucial responsibility and the closeness of trustees to the voters make the local school board the purest example of democracy our society presents. Creating a private partnership strips our community of the most basic of democratic tenets and instead creates taxation without representation. You were elected to represent us, the taxpayers of this community, and the students of Dallas ISD, not to hand over control to a private entity. It is irrelevant that any of these charter partner organizations would have the best intentions, are nonprofit, or that they're not a charter school. They weren't elected by this community. Furthermore, in talking about equity tonight, this policy would exacerbate inequity, with a portion of our district having direct electoral control over their school board and a portion that would not. In my opinion, a vote for this charter partnership policy is a dereliction of duty, and I'm asking that you rid your minds of this proposed charter partnership. Thank you for your service.
Melissa Kingston, followed by the Honorable Philip Kingston.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Kingston. I live at 5901 Palo Pinto Avenue. I am a board member of the Woodrow Wilson High School Community Foundation nonprofit that serves the Woodrow feeder pattern. I'm a community leader. I'm a lawyer here in Dallas, and I'm an alumni from Leadership it was Leadership ISD back then. I'm here primarily to, one, echo the last two speakers' opposition to the charter program. I absolutely, and you all heard from me earlier this week, oppose that. And I'm also here to stand up for my local elementary school, Geneva Heights. I've lived in that neighborhood for 20 years. And I remember when that was the place family after family moved out of because of the schools. It is now the place people move into because of our schools, and it starts with Geneva Heights. And I have seen a plethora of community support for this elementary school. I want to thank our trustee for his commitment to help us preserve the historic structure of the building, but it goes beyond that. It is preserving this school as a neighborhood elementary school, and to remove that elementary school not only costs Geneva Heights, but it costs Long, which is the middle school for the entire feeder pattern, because what they're talking about doing is taking the kids out of Mockingbird, which is a strong school, and creating some sort of K through 8 program, which would take those children out of Long. And Long needs those kids just like our community needs our elementary school. I've seen, and let me just say that the elementary school not only has the support of the parents and the would-be parents, it has a tremendous amount of support from the community. The Lower Greenville Collective, which is the business association on Lower Greenville, has time and again donated and allowed us to hold events for the school. The Granada Theater hosted the big fundraiser that the pre-league group just had. So we have a lot of business support. The neighborhood associations are fully behind this school. We've funded technology in the classroom. We've helped fund infrastructure. Our neighborhood this last year, 400 homes, raised $7,500 to do outdoor classroom improvements. So this school has the kind of support every school in DISD would love to have, and the very last thing you ought to be doing is thinking about destroying that. Thank you.
The Honorable Philip Kingston, followed by Claudia Fowler.
Hey y'all, I'm Philip Kingston, 5901 Palo Pinto. I'm here to talk about the Charter Partnership Program, which I'm pleased is not an agenda item, but I first have to say ditto Ms. Knight, ditto Ms. Meek, ditto Melissa Kingston, of course, ditto Joanna Katnack. I'm here to start with, let me tell you how proud I am of you. There is enormous improvement in DISD, and I think that you've been rightly recognized for it in some circles and not recognized enough for it in other circles. Trustee Solis and I were speaking to a group of realtors just on Tuesday morning. We do have a little dog and pony show. I explain how we're improving the housing policy and the infrastructure policy of the city of Dallas, and he explains how you all have improved the student outcomes in DISD in a very real way, because realtors, as we've heard, need to know this information. I know that this job is really hard, and I really respect the work you do. Putting on my District 2 voter hat just for a second, if you guys ever discuss compensation for board members, you have a vote right here. Please think about that. I'm here to chide you, I hope very gently, for an idea that I think was at best half-baked. The Charter Partnership Program is not designed to improve on the very real gains that DISD has made, that you all used as marketing to sell to the community the idea of a TRE. You raised our taxes on the representation that you guys were really good at this and getting results. And you are good at this and you are getting results. So why would you give that away to private partners who have no proof that they can handle any of these jobs? As an example, I'm a board member of Downtown Dallas Incorporated. It operates the Public Improvement District in downtown, and it does a wonderful job. But it is actually against the charter of the organization for it to manage a school. So our CEO had a little minor heart attack when she saw DDI listed as a potential public partner for DISD to operate a school. That was quite shocking to her. So here's what I mean to tell you. You guys are doing such a good job with student outcomes, but lately, with regard to financial decisions, I see you like Charlie Brown trying to kick the football. The legislature doesn't return funding to pre-2008 levels, and you raise taxes. Okay, well that's good, except now you all are a piñata down in Austin with the governor talking about capping my ability to raise taxes. You all see this Senate bill that offers $1,800 a kid, but it's $1,800 to private partners because the legislature doesn't want public employees.
Thank you, Mr. Kingston. Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Claudia Fowler, followed by Isaac Steen. Claudia Fowler, Isaac Steen, followed by Seychelle Engelhardt.
Hi, my name is Isaac Steen, and I live at 4810 Haywood Parkway, Dallas, Texas, 75232. I want to echo what's been said in the room about partnering with private entities, charter schools. I live in Oak Cliff. We have an overproliferation of charter schools. We have a charter school on just about every major intersection. We got one on Keys in 35. We got one on Ann Arbor in 35. We got one on Camp Wisdom in 35. We just got through fighting where they want to put one on Wheatland in 35. Now, I give credit to Mr. Kingston over there. Went to a meeting. He was the only one that had enough nerve to stand up and say that DISD is being undermined by the mayor and rich people in this city. They are trying to take our public schools and make them out of charter schools. Now, a question was asked earlier that offended me as being a black man, and I'm like James Brown. I say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. There's nothing against nobody else. But when somebody looks just like me tells me that more of us need to be fighting to preserve black history, I agree to that. But the problem is, you ask, why are we here not fighting for black history? Because we fighting for black existence. We trying to exist. We getting taxed out of our neighborhoods. We getting pushed out of our neighborhoods. We getting, the city is against us. All kind of little different policies to get rid of us. Now, Barack Obama, the president, say it's easier to get a gun in the black neighborhood than it is a book. Now, I'm not from some of these rich, predominant neighborhoods that some of y'all from, no offense. But I made the grocery store sometime in our neighborhood just Family Dollar. We don't have a Kroger, a Tom Thumbs, or a Walmart. Our kids are fighting to stay out of the penitentiary. They don't have accessibilities to computers and libraries and video games and such things. We have a hard time getting the police from our neighborhoods. So when this young brother asks why we not fighting to preserve black history, we making black history. That's what we doing because we have a problem. I'm a product of Carter High School, one of the best high schools in Dallas. They made them, no other school in Dallas got Saturday night lights and things of that nature based on Carter High School. And for somebody in the city council to say Carter High School is a failing high school just to put a charter school down the street and told the biggest lie ever told in Dallas, I rest my case.
Seychelle Engelhardt, followed by Lynn Davenport.
Good evening, Superintendent, President, and Board Trustees. My name is Seychelle Engelhardt. I reside at 907 Leatrice Drive in Oak Cliff, and we actually own 4 other properties in DISD territory. I have two non-agenda items I'm speaking to since one of them got pulled, so I will work to be concise for you. The first one is regards to Rosemont, which is our neighborhood elementary school. In 2015, we voted on a bond package that was said to give $35 million to Rosemont Elementary. To date, we've received $0 to Rosemont Elementary. Now, as an owner of 4 properties, you can imagine that I have not just one property tax going to that, but 4. I also own a real estate company here in Dallas-Fort Worth. We employ 16 people, and we have 250 homes that we sell a year. Now, when we look at Rosemont became a middle school in 2012, and we still have not received any dollars to accommodate those 6 through 8 students. We have no labs for science, no performance space, and I am a small person, but I can't sit on the chairs in the cafeteria. They're built for 3rd graders. So we have inadequate restrooms. The restrooms, I can actually almost see over the stall to the next person. So imagine what a 6th through 8th grader feels like when they're trying to have privacy going to the bathroom. Now, when we take a look at that, as the district develops more pre-K through 8 schools, Rosemont's being left behind. Rosemont, that has been a pre-K through 8 school for 7 years without support, deserves the dollars that it needs to not only bring the school up to par, but to make an example of what we can be for other pre-K through 8 schools. Now, in addition to that, I also want to call your attention to our neighborhood school that is our choice school. I was born in Dallas, I grew up in Dallas, and we moved back into DISD and into Rosemont territory because we chose that school. And my family, my in-laws, who I love dearly, grew up in Holland, Michigan. Now, I don't know if you know much about Holland, Michigan, but I'm going to share some facts with you because this is actually where the charter partnership policy started for the United States. So let me give you a couple stats. My mother-in-law is a teacher, was a teacher in English and ESL. We still currently have 4 good friends and family members that teach in the Holland, Michigan school system. So let's take a look at that. When it started, the white population declined 60% after that charter partnership started, and now it is 2 times more poor than it was when this charter partnership started. Now, 2 times the school poverty rate when Michigan school began. The school choice enabled Holland's children to choose their schools, which is great. And in Michigan, you also then have the money follow the child. Well, if you have migrant workers coming in to pick fruit, and 1 in 3 students are no longer
Thank you, Ms. Engelhardt.
Michigan.
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Lynn Davenport, followed by Andrew Kirk.
Good evening, Superintendent and trustees. My name is Lynn Davenport. I live at 9627 Windy Hill Road in Dallas. I am here to speak on a non-agenda item for the proposed policy that was taken off. My kids are in Richardson ISD, but I'm here because what happens here affects my district because of the partnership we have with Commit. And I've been tracking this Senate Bill 1882 for the last year or so, ever since former State Representative Linda Koop was pitching it across the state and promoting it. I saw the dangers of the bill, not just because of the charters, but because of the nonprofits and the foundations that could partner with our districts. I went to Waco ISD a year ago to warn them of the unintended consequences of partnering with non-educators and allowing them access to money and students. This is a pay-for-success scheme where investors could turn a profit on the outcomes. No one calls it that, but that's what this is. Look up social impact bonds. DISD has math innovation zones under Senate Bill 1318, allowing investors to make money on math scores. It's also a social impact bond. Marath hired a social impact bond director at the TEA. So when I saw the list of partners that you guys put out, I thought it was really suspicious because it looks like a possible pay-for-success setup. Many of them are pre-K providers. United Way is on there, Commit's on there. The founder of Commit is from Goldman Sachs. The first pre-K social impact bond in the United States was done by Goldman Sachs United Way, and this was in Utah. You can look up that too. RISD and DISD both have data sharing agreements with Commit that could be used for these schemes, like the Goldman Sachs one done for pre-K in Utah. I'm telling you, there's going to be a tidal wave of social impact bonds coming. This is all written into ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. This sets up little kids as investment vehicles for profit. Thank you. It's wrong, by the way.
Andrew Kirk, followed by Suzabelle Gosley.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Kirk. I'm at 3208 James Drive. I'm here to speak as a product of Dallas Public Schools and a current DISD teacher at Sunset High School. More specifically, I'm speaking to relay my concern regarding the partnership agreement proposed initially for this evening's meeting but pulled from the agenda. What worries me is the eventual creation of a school system with little public oversight and no democratic governance, and an education that sells our most vulnerable students short in the process. Public schools are some of the last remaining connective tissue for communities, particularly in a city like Dallas, where neighborhoods and especially schools are increasingly segregated by race and class. SB 1882 severs public schools from community input and democratic governance. In other words, in the environment the law creates, the public and public schools will cease to be meaningful in any sense because the public will not control them but will pay for them. Parents and teachers will only be stakeholders in the most passive sense. This is particularly outrageous in light of our city's recent vote to raise our own property taxes to more equitably fund public schools. I do not believe the board has convincingly demonstrated these partnerships will lead to improved student outcomes. Similar arrangements have yielded mixed to negative results in other districts. Meanwhile, charter schools, who this law seems written to support, consistently underperform public schools, despite their ongoing per-pupil funding advantage. If this board is serious about improving public education, and I believe that it is, its members must reject any so-called partnership that removes their ability to represent constituents or exercise oversight powers. Trustees must not only reject these agreements, but lobby the state legislature to eventually repeal SB 1882, a law designed to further hobble public schools in our state. Particularly for those of you who hope to represent our city in other capacities, now is the time to make our society more democratic, not less. Thank you.
Suzabelle Gosley, followed by Ruth Torres.
I am Susie Bell Gosley, and I live at 9511 Faircrest Drive. Which parents are going to lose the democratic process if this decision is made for the partnership charters? I'm speaking against the DISD Board of Trustees Charter Partnership proposal. The decision to have the district stop teaching its own students and turn them over to other entities is a very important decision that deserves full and public coverage and discussion. One of the greatest American rights is for parents to elect their own school board member who will make decisions for their children's education in schools. Citizens actively participate in the decision-making process of the government when they vote and elect you to be their representative. If this school board approves the partnership charter, parents will have no say and no vote. For the people who serve on the charter boards, who will be making decisions about their children's education, the standards and operating procedures, about what their child learns and how they will be taught and disciplined. Private agendas could easily enter the decision-making process with no public oversight. The Oversight and Evaluation section of the ELA local states that the district shall implement a comprehensive performance accountability and compliance monitoring system. But that's not the trustees or the parents. But parents and trustees can provide rigorous and evidence-based decisions. Parents need to be part of the checks and balances. The ELA legal document states that the trustees will get reports, but that is not the same as having a trustee walk into a school and be part of their oversight process, because they are accountable to their voters who are also parents. Why leave DISD trustees out of the system? Does the board want to become a system to manage contracts? This district has been improving. Why turn students over to other entities? If you're looking for money, then put pressure on the Texas legislature to increase their percent of funding education back to the original percent of 50% or more. Currently, they fund only 38%. Also, to update the state's cost of education index to determine the actual cost, which have not been updated in many, many years. Also, to not use SB 1882 to fund our schools. It creates inequities and pits schools against each other. Also, there could be unintended consequences for partnership charters. You know, the board actually gives up these schools and these students. Since supporters of partnership charters say everything is in the contract, how do you really get all the rights for parents and teachers in that contract? 3 people.
Thank you, Ms. Gosling. Your time has expired.
Charters. Thank you.
Ruth Torres, followed by Bernice Lopez.
Good evening. My name is Ruth Torres, 1180 North Masters Drive, Dallas, Texas, 75217. I am a parent and a candidate for Dallas City Council for District 5. And I want to quickly talk about one item that is on the agenda, the African American class, and just point out that there is clearly interest in this topic. The African American Museum just had an exhibit on President Jefferson's Monticello, where he owned over 600 slaves, including having children with Sally Hemings. And that exhibit had over 80,000 attendees, and a great proportion of them were students. So I would advocate for that there is an interest in African American studies with just that statistic. Now I want to talk about the charter partnership. I am so glad you guys pulled it from the consent agenda. However, as a parent, I'm very concerned. We just went through elections in November where we gave you everything you asked for, okay? And as a parent, I know when you guys want to talk to us, you know how to do it, okay? We'll have community meetings, we'll have it in PTSAs, we'll get robocalls, 3 of them, the same thing, okay, and emails. So we know you know how to communicate with us. But as a parent, I didn't hear anything about this. I saw it posted on social media. This weekend, on MLK weekend, just a few days, and this was on the consent agenda. That means, and maybe I'm wrong, I hear consent agenda to mean that nobody on this board had a problem with it. Okay, that's not true? Okay, great, because when I hear consent agenda, see that, to me, that's all voted in at one time, and it could just sweep on in. So I apologize if I'm wrong. You can educate me on that, that's fine, okay? But I am concerned that parental involvement was not engaged there, okay? I expect DISD to be the expert in identifying what you need. And I understand the very challenging circumstances in regards to funding. That's the underfunding from state level. I get it. I expect that you're doing the best you can with the cards that you're dealt. But this game of privatizing our education is unacceptable. And I sent you guys on January 22nd, I stayed up late into the night to type out 21 points of concern from what you guys had posted. And I don't have time to read all of that, but I'll say that this application, and I gave you all the copies here, and I have some if anyone here in the room is interested, but the legal exposure, the application process, there's a lot there in terms of eligibility, the cost-benefit ratio, and the accountability with this privatization. So before this comes back out again, I really do hope that you put all
Thank you, Ms. Torres.
Thank you.
Bernice Lopez, followed by Bill Betson. Bernice Lopez. Bill Betson.
Bill Betson, 6717 Cliffwood, Dallas, Texas. I want to ditto so much of what's been said this evening. Our board meetings are getting better and better and better, and this was one of the best, because the public is saying what they think. I hope you are listening. Regarding what was 702, that is now gone, regarding the need for our students to know their own cultures and study their cultures in school. That has to happen. And I want to suggest a way to accelerate that process and bring it home with no expense to the school district. When you accept an application from a parent for their child to enter pre-K, please ask that parent to include with their application a letter to their child about their dreams for their child. And then let that parent know that you're going to ask them for the next 3 years to do the same thing. And they will always get back the letter the next year, but you want them to see how their child is going to change every year. Dreams will change. And a record will slowly be formed that they will be able to give their child someday. But then in the 3rd grade, that process changes. And in the 3rd grade, it starts with their child writing them a letter and asking for 2 things in the letter. Please tell me your dreams for me, and please tell me a story from your history. And they write this letter to each parent, and we encourage them to write it to all their elderly relatives, all the relatives they're close to. Imagine the stories a grandparent can write. And once again, this becomes an annual process. In the 4th grade, they get back their 3rd grade letter. They can read it and rewrite it. And the parents can see what they wrote and rewrite it. And it goes on every year as a priceless record of family history is created. Parents and relatives are warned that you're going to be asked to do this every year, so think of the stories from your history that you want to put into writing for your grandchild, for your niece, for your nephew, for your great-grandchild. That is the best thing we can do to get our kids involved in their history, their own history, their family history. Then in the 8th grade and the 12th grade, there's one change. That year, everybody writes letters about dreams 10 years in the future, and the child writes their own letter to themselves about their plans for 10 years in the future, and it can stay in the school time capsule, a vault in the lobby. Anyhow, that cost y'all nothing.
Thank you, Mr.
And it'll be
Benson.
priceless. Thank you.
Arthur Fleming, followed by Robert D. Jones.
My name is Robert D. Jones Sr. I live at... I live... I live at 1716 Chattanooga Place, Dallas, Texas, 75235. And y'all think that's funny, right? All right. Now, I want to get down to business. I found some more college word. Proliferation, now master, official oppression, institutionalized racism, institutionalized child abuse, then my friend gave me one. Systemically perpetuated failures. Now, with that, I would like to put out a nationwide search and have Michael Murat to be arrested and have Michael Murat to resign and all his friends, Todd Williams, commit and uplift, because we'd already been through all this before, back in 2012. See, y'all wasn't here, but Dr. Flores was here. I always got to come down here and keep the rules. Now, they don't bump my little kid's head like my son. My he wasn't at none of the graduations, and my kids already graduated. But thanks to Dr. Blackburn, he was there to fill in. So everybody have all these feelings and rubbing each other's shoulders, and it's all about the money. So now I know how to follow the money, and I got about 25 years of my own investigation. I want to get anybody because I think I got what they need to put some more people in jail, along with Larry Duncan ain't gone to jail, but they got Caraway all up there looking crazy. See, but it ain't no fair deal, so I'll get back to my notes. About my information going out to Todd now. My name is Robert D. Jones Sr. I live with 1716 Chattanooga Place, and I'm tired of fighting him. I know he's a rich man, and so least you need to quit listening to him, man, before you end up in jail, man. You can't come down here and from Beaumont and say, man, okay, and the new guy, that H.S. Thompson, I commend you. I was over there too. So that school still need to be built over there. I was the last president over there, last PTA. See, and I know they did the burn their nut out and all that, but it kind of makes me like this because I can't kill nothing, man. See, and what it's all about now, it's about racism. I was born in 1964, so I'm
Thank
still
you, Mr.
right
Jones. Your time has expired.
there. Can I get some more time?
Suzabel Sherman, followed by Dan Bridges. Mr. Fleming? Oh, okay. Arthur Fleming.
Good evening, everybody. How you doing? Arthur Fleming, NAACP, Reese Past President and a current Executive Committee member. I want to speak to House Bill 1882. First of all, everybody's familiar with that commercial now, where the little kid, Cascade commercial, where the little girl, where the mom washes the dishes. She puts them in the dryer. Puts them in the dishwasher, and the little girl say, "Well, what did the dishwasher do?" Well, that's what we're asking. We're asking, what are these folks you're trying to bring into the district? What do they do? I read the law, and basically, it adds no value to the school system. There's no community input, and for what? For money. Like I said, this is a law. It's not the law. Now, our district, what I want you guys to understand that your credibility is low within the community. Don't nobody trust y'all. The reason they don't trust you is because y'all do stuff like that. Go get a long list of folks, vendors, right? You got it all together. Then you come and then you say, well, the reason we did that was because we had to get it in on time. But for what? We're already improved as a district, so you're going to bring somebody in to wash the dishes that we've already washed, right? So what we're saying is stop experimenting on our children. We want transparency and accountability. That's what the community needs. And stop this backdoor home rule. Thank you.
Suzanne Sherman, followed by Jan Bridges.
Sherman was the one that marched through Georgia. I'm not Sherman, I'm Sheridan.
Mr. Sheridan.
Thank you.
No, it's Suzanne Sherman.
Will he?
Jan Bridges. Now Richard Sheridan.
To the members of the board and Superintendent Hinojosa. My name is Jan Bridges. I reside at 987 South Rustic Circle, Dallas, Texas. First off, I also want to commend you all for the job you are doing with the district, down to only 4 our schools. I've gotten a B rating from the state of Texas. That's fabulous. So now I'm questioning what the justification is for partnering with charter schools. When you've got that kind of rating, you're doing a great job. I don't understand. Wanting to partner with organizations that have little experience, knowledge, background on education. even commit, they established themselves as a partnership with an initial $500,000 investment. Why would somebody invest $500,000? Well, ask yourself that. To get a return on investment, you know, unless you're like Bill Gates or somebody like that. Goldman Sachs established a product, a financial product called social impact bonds. And so, you know, you have an initial investment. These organizations fill a social need, and in many cases it is in the area of education. And then they try to meet that need through research, analysis, and so forth, testing on our kids to determine, you know, what works, what produces higher level of performance, higher level of graduation rates, for instance. And they do that to justify their existence, okay? That's what they do. They justify their existence because they've got to prove that they are having a social impact. And if they do that, then they get more government funding. And they use that government funding to pay their investors back, at a rate of return around 3%. So, y'all, this is really what this is about. It's really not. Now, I'm not saying that these organizations don't have good motive. I'm sure they think they're doing good at the same time they're making money, you know. But it becomes a self-fulfilling, like a Ponzi scheme kind of a deal, you know, where they're just making money. And also, a lot of these organizations do their own research. They do their own analytics, and it's not done by an independent
Your time has expired.
researcher, so you can't trust it.
Richard Sheridan, followed by Frank Bravo.
Yes, good evening, Rich Sheridan, 4801 Live Oak Street, Dallas, Texas. Everything I'm going to say tonight is pretty much from the Advocate, Oak Cliff Advocate, February 28th, 2018. The ISD, the movie, the plot, twist, the players, the money, the drama. Look past the news of the day and you'll find a story worthy of the big screen. It's an entertaining tragedy, unless you're a taxpayer, parent, or child in the district's schools. To me, this article explains what is going on at DSD with the proposed privatization, the home rule, the push for charter schools, racism, and moneyed interests. For quotes, am I leaving out the names? The good guys, self-described reformers in the story, haven't always been good. The bad guys in the story, those not sold on reform, have some good reasons for being bad. Let's not forget the ever-present issue of race and discrimination always lurking in the background of every scene. We are the worst public enemy to the black, we are the worst public enemy to the black children in Dallas. District 9 ISD trustee Bernadette Nuttall asked rhetorically about a column written by a local journalist. That was hurtful. African-American board members have always been willing to work across the table, but the problem is when we didn't do what you say to do, how you say to do it, we're the problem, Nuttall says. The African-American DSD trustees are always the ones that have to do the olive branch, she says, and you want us to come and be like, yes, massa, I need to think whatever you say to think. That's Bernadette Nuttall. And, quote, we are working against the monolithic efforts to dismantle DSD under the guise of reform, and those leading these efforts have power and money and are doing so for their personal gain. Their work on a special interest agenda is hurting our children, particularly children who are the most vulnerable in our community. This read an email from Lori Kirkpatrick to her supporters on June 10, 2017, the day she faced another trustee in a runoff election. At a high level, I support education reform in the sense of working to make schools better, to better educate our children, to better prepare them to meet the workforce demands of the next century. The devil is in the details. What the parents are seeing is that many policies are not working well and not having the intended effect. Let's look at what's going on in our schools in terms of the loss of good teachers and good principals and begin to ask, why is this happening? A seated trustee. We've gone from a 54% white population to 36%
and 46% minority, to today's 5% whites, 92% minority, and 90% of our children are in poverty. Basically, the bottom line is, if we don't learn from history, we're going to repeat it. I will conclude with this, again, with 90% of the student minority, 90% of students in poverty. What do the rich white people, in this city know about educating the minorities? I would say...
Thank you, Mr.
look
Sheridan.
it's money over...
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Frank Bravo, followed by George Rangel. Frank Bravo, George Rangel.
Good evening, President Flores, trustees, and Superintendent Hinojosa. My name is George Angel, 334 Center Street, Dallas, Texas, 75208. I'm the Executive Vice President at Alliance AFT, and I thank you for this opportunity tonight. This past week, Alliance sat down with trustees Pinkerton and Marshall, and we want to thank each for discussing the complexities of ELA. While we know everyone's heart is in the right place, it is important to remember any additional monies come with strings. And many of these strings lead to questions that remain unanswered. The prospect of giving up control of our schools for up to 10 years should not be an issue taken lightly. We are thankful that the consent agenda item 8.01 regarding proposed policy ELA local was pulled from the agenda. In the meantime, we advise all stakeholders in the ISD to pressure legislators to fix education funding and properly fund our schools without being required to give up our democratic control. On another note, administration sent an email out in August. Employees sent an email out in August offering employees bus driver positions. Many of these teachers applied and were hired. Those approved followed proper protocol, received overwhelming support from their campus administrators, and many principals were supportive for the simple fact that teachers picked up students that he or she taught and had a working relationship with them. An added plus was that the students arrived to school on time. Now these teachers have been verbally released from their bus duties, causing a great amount of angst and confusion. Alliance AFT is asking the district to reinstate these teachers to the bus driving positions they applied for and were hired for. When you offer the employees positions and then take them away at a whim, it's unprofessional, especially when you have dedicated employees already in the system that stood up and took the initiative to help when we were short, when we started out the year with 99 bus drivers short. We really need to consider the decisions that we make, and I hope that you consider reinstating these employees. Thank you.
Chris Daisy, followed by Sharon Ferruti. Sharon Ferruti.
Evening. My name is Chris Daisy. I live at 3311 Elm Street, Dallas, Texas, 75226. I teach U.S. History and AP U.S. History as well as coach the chess team at W.W. Samuel High School. I'm a DTR teacher and was the 2017-2018 Campus Teacher of the Year. I am speaking tonight on behalf of Alliance AFT in regard to the polled agenda item 8.02 concerning potential district partnerships with charter schools. Although the item is not on tonight's agenda, I would like to share my experiences so as to inform any future discussions or debates on this issue. I started my career as a member of Teach for America in New Orleans, Louisiana. As many of you know, after Hurricane Katrina, charter schools proliferated in New Orleans. I worked at one of these charter schools. In my third year of teaching, I worked at a charter school called Cohen College Prep. This charter school partnered with a traditional high school called Walter L. Cohen High School. These two schools were far from equals. While the charter Cohen College Prep gained access to the majority of the building and the lion's share of the resources, Walter L. Cohen was reduced to only a handful of classrooms and teachers and worked with significantly less resources than the charter Cohen College Prep, even though the two shared the same building. The only students remaining at Walter L. Cohen, the traditional high school, were students that no charter was willing to accept, students with severe disabilities or students with major behavioral infractions. Thus, the students with the highest needs were given the least resources. I share this experience because I fear that a similar pattern might unfold should our district seek to implement similar policies. We have an obligation to ensure that all students have access to a high-quality education, and potential partnerships with charter schools may, even inadvertently, threaten the success of this mission. In closing, I would like to take a moment to express my sincere thanks for allowing me the privilege and honor to speak before you tonight. Thank you.
Sharon Baruti, followed by Hobie Huckel. Hobie Huckel.
Good evening, trustees and Superintendent Hinojosa. My name is Hobie Huckel. I'm a school librarian at Samuel High School. I'm also a taxpayer at 8527 Brettshire, Dallas, Texas. I'm pleased to see that you pulled the agenda item 8.02 from tonight's meeting agenda. This policy is ill-conceived. It's based on Texas Education Code 11.174, which was crafted by enemies of public education, simply stated. It ignores the ravages of the last 30 years of systematic defunding of public schools and the parallel obsession with testing and punishing. In 1984, the state's contribution to public school district funding was over 50%. It dropped to 34% in 2017-2018. Over the same period, charters grew to siphon off $2.5 billion in state funding. Charters are not public schools. They are not publicly governed. They are not our friends. Need I remind you that 50% of secondary librarians were eliminated last year. According to Dr. Hinojosa, these and other cuts were directly caused by the proliferation of charter schools. Along with voucher schemes, charters are a means to wrest resources from democratically governed public schools until those resources are under private control. Post-Katrina New Orleans is a perfect example. Partnerships played a role there. Given this fundamental contradiction, I was dumbfounded when I discovered, but to my surprise, that this proposal to partner with charters was being considered. Talk about sleeping with the enemy. We already know that charters do not outperform public schools. Has the administration already given up on the unlucky victims of drill and kill, test and punish? What about the vaunted ACE program? How revealing that the privateers in Austin have no interest in anything that does not involve charters. Is this partnership proposal just a deliberate attempt to squeeze a few more years of life out of a few unlucky district schools? I hope so, because the other explanation implies world-class opportunism and cynicism. District policy was little protection for last year's layoff librarians. A charter partnership will be even worse. In closing, this is a bad deal from the worst of right-wing privateers in Austin and neo-libs here in Dallas. Don't do it. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Soraya Golub.
Good evening. Good evening. President Flores, good evening to the board. My name is Dr. Soraya Golub. I live at 4039 Crown Shore Drive in Dallas, Texas. I am a proud Dallas ISD parent. I'm also a community liaison for two of our elementary schools up in the W.T. White Peter Patton. When I read of this proposal, I was frankly horrified because I strongly believe that a robust public education system is the foundation of any civil society. The moment that we give up on the idea that every child has an equal right to a resilient and a flourishing and a full education is the moment that we give up on civil society itself. As you can all tell, I've got an accent. I come from New Zealand, where public education is the only way to go, where people who attend private schools are slightly suspect because they think they went there because they're religious nuts of some kind, because that's the only reason. When you have a robust public education system, the picture is completely different. My concern with the partnerships agreement as written is, although it looks like what it's trying to do is bring innovation into the district, as I talk to academics, other educators from other places, what I hear is that, oh, that was done first in Dallas ISD. We are an incredibly innovative and forward-thinking district who is working amazingly hard for our students, and it shows. Why would we go to partnerships, incur the price not only of a 10-year partnership agreement with no governance over our schools, in order to get something that frankly we're already doing? This beggars belief. I'm a philosopher by training, and one of the things that I'm deeply interested is the idea of what we say by our actions. The partnership agreement looks innocuous, right? It's like, well, we're just getting a little extra money for these kids by signing on to this. But this has a symbolic value, this action. It has a symbolic value of endorsing the notion of a charter school, of endorsing the notion that a public district is not sufficient, that a public district requires outside partners for innovation. And frankly, that's just false. I think Dallas ISD is doing an amazing job, that we really are at the forefront, that this is showing in our scores. This price is far too high to pay for a few extra dollars. Again, these extra dollars won't even be going into the district's pocket. They will be the recipient of a small number of children who are able to sign on to the partner schools, which are, as we know, the kids who are the pick of the bunch. Charter schools don't accept all of our children. They do not value an inclusive and robust public education system. So in closing, I am so glad that you're not considering it tonight, but I would enormously and strongly urge you not to consider it at all. Thank you so much.
This concludes our speakers.
Thank you, Ms. Gully. The board will now retire to closed session. The public is welcome to wait in this room while the board is in closed session. The board will retire to closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551 concerning any and all purposes permitted by the Act, including but not limited to the following sections. 551.071 for private consultation with its attorney about pending or contemplated litigation or on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter, including discussion of District 4 vacancy, resignations, votes, and election. It is now 8:14 p.m. and we are in closed session. I expect this will last at least an hour. Thank you. It is 9:22, and we're back in open session. The board took no action in closed session. Next item on the agenda are the superintendent's report, academic achievement, accolades, and events.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I have three very quick items. One announcement, we're very pleased to announce that Alex Sanger Elementary School teacher Elisa Morrissey was named Elementary School Teacher of the Year for the entire district, and Nadira Shakir from Long Middle School has been named the Secondary Teacher of the Year. They were both honored. Our thanks to HEB Central Market for giving them a $5,000 check and also sponsoring the dinner for all of our finalists, and that was a great event. Two quick announcements. On February the 1st, we'll be having our inaugural State of the District at the Omni. We are very pleased to announce you that it is sold out ahead of time and we can't take any more. So, but we're very proud that it's been a great response from the community for that event. And then, the very next day is the Great STEM Expo on February the 2nd at the K. Beatty Hutchinson Center. Once again, our students performing at the STEM Expo from all over town. So that concludes my brief report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, trustees, the next item on the agenda are the trustee committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? I don't believe we do. Okay, next item on the agenda are the trustee reports for districts. Wait. Oh. So the next item are the district trustee reports, and we'll start on my right, your left, with trustee Pinkerton.
Thank you. A number of things to report today. I want to first congratulate the girls swim team at W.H. Adamson High School for their win at the district UIL competition. The team is now headed to regionals along with several other DISD teams. And then kudos to Sunset High School senior Magali Ramundo and Adamson's Jalen Freeman for being named winners of the Nancy Lieberman Charity's $10,000 college scholarships. The students were among 3 other district athletes to receive this award, and much thanks to Ms. Lieberman for her generosity. I want to congratulate our Teacher of the Year finalists that were from District 7, so Marco Magoni, science teacher at Quintanilla Middle School, and Audrey Gagel, who teaches art and theater at Reagan STEAM Academy, were 2 of 10 finalists, and think about this, 10,000 teachers and you're in the top 10 is quite an accomplishment. So congratulations to them, and we're really excited to have you teaching in District 7. And then finally, I want to send out a plea for volunteers. Sunset Collegiate Academy is looking for 60 mentors to work with those students, and I hope that everyone will consider this. Those are some really neat kids over there that could use mentoring and guidance as they launch themselves into successful careers. So if you're interested, contact Sunset High School. You can ask for the Collegiate Academy department there. You could always email me at audreypinkerton@dallasisd.org. Thank you.
Trustee Blackburn.
We want to congratulate our student from William Brown Miller Elementary School, 4th grader Josiah King, for winning the 27th annual Dallas Martin Luther King Junior Oratory Competition. And in case you guys have not figured out, second place was in District 5, third place was in District 5, and if we had a fourth place, the young lady from Wilma Hutchins Elementary School would have been in the top running too. So I know you guys are jealous about that, but that's okay too. We want to thank all the students from District 5 that did very well in the competition. We got 4 of the 8 finalists that were on stage. Also, kudos to District 5's very own Olympic gold medalist Roy Robot Martin from Roosevelt for being chosen as a member of the second class of inductees into the National High School Track and Field Hall of Fame. He's a 1985 graduate of Roosevelt, my alma mater. Robot is considered one of the greatest high school sprinters in American history. And finally, it's my pleasure to recognize Judge Barefoot Sanders Law Magnet for being nominated as a National 2019 Blue Ribbon School in the category of exemplary high-performing schools. We want to thank all those students and accolades, and look forward to many more coming from District 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Foreman.
If I don't steal them and put them in District 6. Good evening. I'd like to celebrate Chantrell Lovett, who is a teacher at Humphrey Lee Elementary School, for being one of the 2018-2019 Teacher of the Year finalists. Ms. Lovett is just one of the highly effective teachers who go above and beyond daily in her classroom, and I thank her for representing District 6 so well. I also want to congratulate the Carter swim team, which made it to won the district finals and is going to regional, so we're excited about that. Go Carter Cowboys. And tonight, also, I'd like to thank the administration for working with us. Also, besides Mark Twain becoming a tag magnet, Carpenter Elementary will become a dual language school. Also, two-way dual language. Also, I want to remind parents, students, and community members that the application deadline for our specialty schools like magnets, Montessori's, collegiate academies, and more is January the 31st. I am proud to say that District 6 is home to some of the premier schools and programs in the district, and I encourage you to consider them and apply. You can learn more by actually sending an email to the district, dallasisd.org/yourchoices, or to my email address, joyceforeman@dallasisd.org. Thank you.
Trustee Mitchke.
Thank you. I'll give the District 3 report. I'm proud to say that Mrs. Morrissey, the elementary school teacher of the year at Alex Sanger Elementary, Alex Sanger Preparatory, she was honored on Tuesday at a special surprise meeting in the auditorium, and she gave a great speech on determination, grit, high expectations, showing vulnerability and connecting with students. I posted that video on Facebook, and I was amazed at how many people from the neighborhood really took the time to write really kind notes about how great our teachers are, and in particular, Mrs. Morrissey. Kudos to Jackalow Senior Elementary, one of the 26 Texas schools nominated for the 2019 National Blue Ribbon School Award. And I'd also like to make a comment about Tony Robertson Jr., who is a fifth grade student at Clara Oliver Elementary in Dr. Blackburn's district. He spoke at the Dallas Bar Association on Monday and gave a tremendous speech. A friend of mine, Bill Holston, was being honored for this as this year's Martin Luther King Jr. Award recipient, and he had to follow Tony Robertson, and he was quite distressed at the high bar that Tori set. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Henry?
Good evening. So there's a lot of good news coming out of District 9. I want to issue a special shout out to star student Sky Turner of Charles Rice Learning Center, who recently appeared on the Steve Harvey Show with her idol Patti LaBelle. Sky is developing quite a reputation as a singer. In fact, it was her performance of Patti LaBelle's songs that landed her a star term on the Steve Harvey Show. So we didn't get an oratory winner, but we did get someone to meet their hero, Trustee Blackburn. And on that note, with the oratory competition, also deserving of a shout out are the two outstanding young orators from District 9 who were finalists in the annual MLK Junior Oratory Competition. Kimberly Rout of J.P. Starks and Kyla Hudson of Charles Rice both did a stellar job of sharing their original essays at last week's MLK Oratory Showcase. I want to say kudos to a few campuses. One is Miss Carter, who's janitor at Edna Row. Edna Row's had a lot of construction over the summer through the year, and Ms. Carter has to be on the campus whenever the construction happens, so when they're really working to get the school open in the summer, she was there on the weekends, Sundays, you name it. One of the quotes when I was talking to her, she said, even at lunch, she said, I didn't want to go to lunch because I didn't want the kids to get cold, and she said that because she's responsible for, I guess there's a boiler that I need to get aware of that has to be addressed or it won't heat the building. So I just want to give kudos to her and her high level of commitment. I hope the administration finds a way to acknowledge folks like that are doing things to keep our schools open at the same time and running efficiently. Kudos to MLK Junior Learning Center and Principal Stewart, whose students outperformed their peers in 15 of the 21 categories on the fall assessment of course performance. The MLK staff is also on board with the school's leadership as reflected in the scores above 90% on all 6 of the categories of the district's annual climate survey. They call it the kingdom. If you've ever been in MLK this year, it is truly the kingdom. It's a wonderful place to walk into. Everyone is extremely happy. It's just a great place to be. And its final note from the good news category, Skyline Principal Dr. Lombardi reports that 96% of her seniors have taken the Dallas County Promise Pledge to pursue a college scholarship to a DCCD community college. I encourage all students to take the pledge, apply for a community college, and complete the FAFSA financial aid form to be ready to attend college next fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Solis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 3 District 8 schools received a share of $252,000 donated by Sam's Club to support science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics education in Dallas ISD. Solar Preparatory School for Girls and Solar Preparatory School for Boys each received $60,000 from Sam's. The Innovation, Design, Entrepreneurship Academy High School received $100,000. The campuses already embrace the science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics mindset, and I cannot wait to see how the donations will enhance those efforts. It's also extremely encouraging to see this investment in Dallas ISD schools, specifically these 3 schools. There was a point in time where there was fear about what these schools might be, because we were calling them choice schools. People were concerned. People thought there was a takeover. That was not the case. And in fact, we now are proving the promise of public education because we took the time to be bold and to innovate. Not only now have we proven the promise of public education to a degree through these innovative concepts, but we are seeing investment in our schools. The remaining $32,000 went to the district's STEM department. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Resendez?
Thank you, President Flores. In very exciting news, H. Grady Spruce High School's 2019 senior class and the school's Alumni Association have come together to establish the H. Grady Spruce High School Hall of Fame to honor those Spruce graduates who have made an impact in the community. Congratulations to the School for the Talented and Gifted in Pleasant Grove for holding a successful book fair with Scholastic that allowed parents in the community to purchase books for the school online and in person. Thanks to the generosity of everyone involved, the school has thousands of dollars in new books for students to read. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Trustee Marshall?
Thank you, Mr. President. I first want to echo the superintendent by congratulating the Dallas ISD Secondary Teacher of the Year, Nadira Shakir from J.L. Long Middle School. Ms. Shakir teaches 7th grade pre-AP mathematics. She's been at J.L. Long for 5 years and hopefully many more to come. I also want to congratulate Sherry Kirby from Dandy Rogers, who was an elementary school finalist. So very proud to have two finalists, 2 out of the 10 finalists from District 2. Also, lots of big sporting accolades at Woodrow this month. The Woodrow girls swim team placed first and the boys placed second in the district. So congrats to the swimmers. Congrats also to the Woodrow Lady Wildcat wrestling team, which dominated the Bryan Adams quad tournament, Dan, by going 3-0 against VA, South Oak Cliff, and Sunset. Good job, ladies. On January 20th, Woodrow Wilson student Kendall Loper was on Channel 8 with Dale Hansen as the GMC Buick Scholar Athlete of the Week. And also on January 5th, several players on Woodrow's Wildcat football team won football all-district awards. In fact, they're too numerous to name. Also, congrats to the North Dallas women's wrestling team, which came in 3rd overall in the city, even though they only had 4 wrestlers at the Dallas ISD All-City Tournament. Congrats to the Bulldogs and their coaches. Also want to give a shout out to Woodrow senior Sophia Rogers, who earned a spot in the All-State Choir. More than 18,000 students across Texas registered for the TMEA All-State process this year. And 5 rounds later, with only 3% of participants remaining, Sophia will represent the Woodrow Choir program proudly as part of the 2019 All-State Treble Choir and Concert on February 16th in San Antonio. So good luck to her. Also, congrats to the Woodrow's all-female robotic team, which won the Motivate Award at the North Texas First Tech Challenge tournament in Wiley. Woodrow has the largest engineering enrollment in a Texas comprehensive high school. So amazing work, ladies. And lastly, want to congratulate the Woodrow Wilson Dance Company that presented the long-awaited Nutcracker short and sweet performance in December. The show was a huge success. So shout out to all those schools, and that concludes the District 2 report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Trustee Marshall. I have 2 quick things. One, I want to congratulate Walnut Hill Elementary School for being nominated for a 2019 National Blue Ribbon Award. Walnut Hill could be the first Dallas ISD neighborhood elementary school to earn 2 blue ribbons as an exemplary high-performing school. The campus earned its first blue ribbon in 1999. Congratulations for such a great accomplishment, and thank you to all the staff for their hard work and dedication. Also, on behalf of the entire board, I want to thank you, the administrators, teachers, parents, and community for their kind notes, messages, and words of appreciation during Board Recognition Month. Students have posted marquee messages, parents and community have called us, and constituents have reached out in multiple ways to thank us trustees for serving as your representatives. I'm sure I speak for the full board in saying thanks to the entire community for entrusting us with the care and education of our most precious resource, the children of Dallas ISD. With that, we will move on to item 6 on the agenda, consider and take possible action to approve the minutes submitted for approval. These include audit committee meeting December 7, 2018, called board meeting December 13, 2018, public hearing December 13, 2018, board meeting December 13, 2018, and governance compliance ad hoc committee meeting December 17, 2018. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Michke, second by Solis. If there are no changes to the minutes, please cast your vote.
I vote yes.
Thank you, Trustee Marshall.
Trustee Henry?
Trustee Henry? Need to vote. Your vote didn't.
Okay. The motion passes 8 voting yes.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda are the statutory items which may appropriately come before the attention of the board. 7.01, consider and take possible action to adopt the resolution ordering a general election to be held May 4th, 2019 for the purpose of electing 3 members to the Board of Trustees of the Dallas Independent School Districts in Districts 4, 5, and 7. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
We have a motion by Trustee Mitchke, second by Trustee Solis. Trustees, any discussion? If not, please cast your vote.
Yes.
Thank you, Trustee Marshall.
Okay. The motion passes 8-0.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is conduct the board's constraint self-evaluation in accordance with the TA Lone Star Governance Implementation Integrity Instrument. Dr. Lear, will you please lead us through board's constraint self-evaluation?
Sure. We have 2 items under statutory. The first is simply your monthly board self-evaluation of your constraint. And January's constraint is the board, either collectively or through the actions of individual trustees, shall not assume a supervisory role with staff and students. So if you can mark either complied or did not comply, sign, and Dina will come by and collect those from each trustee. The next item is our quarter self-evaluation, and I'll just lead the board through the points that we believe that we've accumulated. If we look at Vision 1, we are at 12 points, so we have increased because we've adopted AE and we have our goals. And if I go to Vision 2, we're also at 12 points. We've increased in that area. Vision 3, we're at 9 points. Vision 4, we are still at 4. The next 3 areas are accountability 1, accountability 2, and structure. We're at 0. And then we go to advocacy, we have 1 point, and unity, we have 10, which totals 48 points. At this time, I just need the board president, the full board, to agree to those points, and we just need a signature from the board president.
Okay, so need a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Oh, so we need motions?
Okay.
Well, the conduct the board self-restraint, that's just what we do every month. But then we need a motion to approve the board self-evaluation implementation integrity instrument. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mitchke, second by Solis. And we have to, are we set up to vote on this? That we agree with Dr. Lear on our points?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes, we have to vote on it. Okay, here it is. Thank you. So trustees, if there's no discussion, please cast your vote.
Yes.
Thank you, Trustee Marshall.
Trustee Foreman? Okay. The motion passes 7 voting yes and 1 abstaining.
Okay, thank you, trustees. The next action item is, oh, I see that was, we already did that one. Okay, so that's the statutory item. So the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have consent agenda items 8.01 through 8.35 as amended. However, there have been changes to the items that were pulled for a separate vote. So the only items remaining pulled for a separate vote are 8.14, 8.21, 8.26, 8.33 and 8.34. Thank you to the trustees that had pulled those and put them back on the agenda. Items 8.01 and 8.05 have been pulled from the agenda altogether. So we are voting on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Mitch K., second by Trustee Henry. There is no discussion on the consent agenda. Please cast your votes.
Yes.
Thank you, Trustee Marshall.
Yes. Okay. You gonna vote? It's not?
It's not coming up.
Okay, let's see.
Just call for a voice vote.
Yes, I vote yes.
Okay,
I vote yes.
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 Okay. Okay, one second, close. Yes, no, not present. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, the motion passes 8-0.
Okay, trustees, thank you very much. We have adopted the consent agenda. So now we will move to the items pulled for a separate vote. So the first item pulled for a separate vote was item 8.14, which is 9.03 on our agenda. So we're going to move, consider and take possible action to approve the memorandum of understanding between Dallas ISD and Dallas Education Foundation not to exceed $225,000 general operating funds, ratify Dallas ISD's previous expenditures and actions in support of DEF not previously approved by the Dallas ISD Board of Trustees, not to exceed $326,000 general operating funds. Consent item 8.14 pulled by trustees Joyce Foreman, Lou Blackman, and Audrey Pinkerton. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion by trustee Mitch K., a second by trustee Solis. Trustees, any discussion?
Yes.
Trustee Foreman.
And Pam, these will just be comments, so I don't expect a response because we've had lots of conversation about this. And so I'll start out with is that this is an initiative that I will not be supporting. And I have several reasons for that in response to all the information that I've received from the administration. Number one is that DEF has had a sordid history, which has not been good in this district, and we continue to want to revive that. I'm in strong opposition of using the same board members that got us to where we are now. I have a real issue with ratifying expenditures that should have been done correctly in the first place. And if we don't ratify them, if they don't ratify them, because I won't vote for it, it could be a gift of public funds. I have an issue with that. But above all, there's a trust issue. The administration bypasses the board by giving out data sharing agreements without bringing them to the board. The administration puts items under $150,000 year after year, so the board doesn't get a chance to look at them. I have an issue with that. I have an issue with us continuing to do the same thing over and over, even though it doesn't work. So I will be voting against this item.
Trustees, any other questions? Trustee Pinkerton.
I have a few questions for Dr. Lear. She's all by herself up there at the table today. So this is my overarching question for this new memorandum of understanding, and Trustee Foreman has alluded to the fact that we've tried this in different iterations in the past, and it hasn't worked. Time and time again, it hasn't worked. So what's different? about this arrangement as it's documented in this memorandum of understanding that would lead us as a Board of Trustees to think that this is going to work this time?
So as we've discussed, this memorandum is a stronger agreement. There's far more transparency. There's far more controls that are in place.
Let me just interject, and you could probably get right to what I'm looking for. What would you say are the top 3 things that are new in this agreement that are the stronger controls and the greater transparency going forward?
I would say, for one, we would have a strong commitment and relationship between Dallas ISD and DEF.
So, Dr. Lear, let me just I want to clarify what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to point us to aspects of this agreement that are new and different than what we had in the past. So not really generalities, I appreciate what you're saying, but I just want to save you some time, because ultimately that's what I want to get to, is what is it that's now in this agreement that defines what our new arrangement is with them that's going to be different than, because we had a commitment to, those kinds of things we had before, commitment, good intent, we had all of that, but for some reason it just didn't work.
So I guess I would start with, there's a piece that really outlines what the director will be responsible for. And there's also a piece on the cost-benefit analysis to make sure that what we're doing with DEF really is of benefit to the district. And that's outlined on, I want to say it's page 10.
But those are in the last agreement. The last agreement referenced a cost-benefit analysis, and it also outlined the duties of the executive director.
So if you would refer to, and I'm looking at the red line version, but I believe it's page 10, there are probably, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are about 9, 10 different aspects that are in this agreement that weren't in the other agreement.
So you're saying, I just want to make sure I understand, you're saying that we're going to calculate the cost-benefit analysis differently this time than we did before?
Well, to my knowledge, I saw the cost-benefit analysis based off of the attorney, but that was because we asked for that. I never saw a cost-benefit analysis prior to this year.
And I guess that's what I'm getting at, because in the old agreement, they had agreed to provide a cost-benefit analysis, but they never did. So now we say we have a new agreement and we're requiring them to provide us a cost-benefit analysis. But we required them to do that before and it didn't happen. What's different about this agreement?
And I guess that's where I'm saying there will be tighter controls in that we will need to bring to the board on an annual basis what that cost-benefit analysis is. We will also go and speak with the District Advisory Committee to make sure that the goals that DEF establishes align with what we want as a district and our goals and initiatives as a district. So there's alignment there. There are also just, Dr. Blackburn, the last time we met, asked about the financials. And so there are many elements in this particular agreement where the board can see the financials at any given time. I mean, we have it baked in here annually, but the board could ask at any given time. There's also, there's a termination. If the board does not feel that the foundation is, seeking the merit that we hope that it does, then we can terminate the MOU. There's also, we've also changed the MOU so that it's just for the first year instead of the 3 years. So those are some things that have changed in this MOU since the last time that we met. And again, there are pages in here that really get at the expectations of the director, and then also just the reporting mechanisms. The other thing, we did lose the 501c3 status, and so built in this MOU is that we will file the 990s on an annual basis, and those will have to come to administration, to the board.
And of course, that was also in the last MOU, that they were required to maintain their 501c3 and et cetera, but I appreciate some of the other aspects that you brought out here. I think the one-year term is important, and I appreciate you hearing us on the board that we want to give this a go. If this thing passes, we give it a go, but in 1 year, you have the option to renew. Is that an automatic renewal? Would that have to come back to the board?
No, we would bring it back to the board.
What is your intent with regard to reporting, the frequency that the board will get updates, financial updates and otherwise, on the Dallas Education Foundation should this be approved?
The intent would be quarterly to come to the board to share the progress that's being made with the foundation. And I think that, Dallas Education Foundation owes that to the board to show the progress that's being made on a continuous basis, on a frequent basis.
You mentioned the 501c3, which the Dallas Education Foundation lost that status, right?
Sure.
And I know they've been trying to regain it. Do they have 501c3 status at this moment in time?
So due to the government shutdown, we have not received that determination letter, but we believe that everything has been turned in, and we believe that we will receive that determination
In
letter.
addition, we still have coverage from the Dallas Foundation, but we expect to get, as soon as the federal government's back up and working, because that
Yes.
was in the final stages when they shut down. But we do have coverage from the Dallas Foundation in the
Correct.
meantime.
Okay. I have a very different understanding of what, we had outside counsel look at this, that was very different. My understanding of what they came back with was very different. That was a whole fundamental piece of this. Dallas Education Foundation thought that they had coverage from the Dallas Foundation, but then it turns out that they didn't, and that's why it's so crucial to get this 501c3 in place.
Dallas Foundation does have a 501c3.
Right. The Dallas Foundation does, but they're a fiduciary partner to the Dallas Education Foundation. So
Correct.
DEF does not have 501c3 status, and the fact that Dallas Foundation does have 501c3 status does not cover DEF. Right? That's what we learned about this situation.
You know what, I'd want to get you more information. I do believe that Dallas Foundation, because they're the umbrella and they do have the 501c3 status, that DEF uses them as the fiscal agent. But I'd have to get more information just to make sure that.
Well, it's concerning to me because, we can look at it right now if you want to, but that was the whole heart of why DEF has to make every effort at this moment to get their 501c3. That was the strong advice, that they needed to do that, right?
Exactly, yes. The attorney did make that recommendation, and that's why we've moved forward to do that.
So where does that put us in terms of what happens if they don't get their 501c3 status, and what happens in the meantime with expenditures that the district has relative to DEF?
So my understanding from the attorney is that those dollars are not in jeopardy because Dallas Foundation does hold their 501, their charitable status.
They're not in jeopardy, but the dollars are there. That's what you're telling me,
Sure.
which I understand. What I'm trying to understand is okay, I'm using that as a very general term, is it okay for DISD to say, hire an employee who will be spending half their time working on DEF projects? Will we find ourselves, if we do that before DEF gets its 501c3 status, will we find ourselves in a gift of public funds situation 1 year from now?
So the goal is, I mean, and, you know, we have a sequence of events that need to happen. And so the first thing is to have the MOU and to also get the 501, get the determination letter for DEF. And we believe that we will get that as soon as, you know, as soon as the shutdown ends. And so we're not moving forward with any of the other sequence of events until that happens.
Okay. Okay, that's what I was asking.
So Trustee Pinkerton, your time has expired. We'll go back to questions.
Will there be a second round
Blackburn.
coming around?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Trustee Black.
So I want to pick up on the 501c3.
Sure.
And it sounds like you're saying that while the Education Foundation does not have the determination letter, that you feel like it's coming. But I believe this MOU says that it alludes to the foundation already being a 501c3. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's a fallacy in the MOU that we're making an agreement about something that is not there yet. So it's like signing off on something before all the, everything is done. I mean, I can understand the government being shut down, but we're approving something before we have what I think is a very important component of this agreement. And to say that the Dallas Foundation is almost like a safety net. We had that before, but the attorney said that no, the foundation the Dallas Education Foundation has to get its own status back in place. Otherwise, if the foundation, Dallas Foundation, was the overall safety net, there was no need for the Dallas Education Foundation to go through the process of getting its status corrected. So I have a problem when you say that the Dallas Foundation, I know you didn't use safety net, but it's almost like you're saying that's the safety net. That's just like saying Roosevelt Alumni Association can start collecting their money through the Dallas Foundation and everything is fine. But it wouldn't be. Am I seeing this wrong?
Dr. Blackburn, I have all the documentation to
Do you
show
have the
that we,
documentation that show that their status?
like I said, I don't have the determination letter.
Isn't that important to this, though?
Determination letter.
Isn't that important to this?
It's absolutely
Because that is the
important.
proof that they have been approved as a nonprofit organization, but we don't have the proof. So let me go to the financial accounting, because it sounds like this is just going to be another department of Dallas ISD, because their staff is going to be our employees. They're going to be in our facilities, using our equipment, using our materials. So what org code would this foundation use? Do we know?
So we would have a director. The director would fall under.
What financial
I don't
org
have the
code?
org code. I can.
That's why I'm looking at the CFO. What financial org code would be used to account for it on our end, since we're going to be paying for the costs, not the Education Foundation?
Since the memorandum of understanding hasn't been approved yet, we haven't established the org number. We will do that pending approval.
Surely you
to
guys
track
thought
that.
about it.
Yeah, we've thought about it, but we haven't done it.
Give me an idea.
I'm sorry?
900 something, 800 something?
It would depend on ones that are available. I don't have them all memorized as the
But
ones
we
available.
will be accounting
Yes,
for
they will have a
all
separate
of the
word.
costs
Yes.
for the foundation, and we will be able to see on a monthly basis where we stand with the foundation.
For that
I
word,
would
yes, sir.
suggest that, just like we have the food service done separately from the INS done separately, I think the foundation should be part of your monthly financial report so we can see monthly how much we're spending on the foundation and how much we're receiving through the foundation.
And every one of our orgs is part of our monthly presentation.
Okay? But I still have some concerns that we still have not received the letter from the IRS for whatever reasons. But the MOU says that they do have it. So from a legal standpoint, should we move forward? From a legal standpoint, should we move forward? I'm asking our attorney now.
It's my understanding from the
I'm really
attorneys.
asking our attorney. I'm looking past you, Pam. From a legal standpoint, should we
Well-
enter into an agreement with an organization that proclaims to be a nonprofit organization with the IRS status? Should we legally enter into an agreement with the entity that has not gained what it says it has by this agreement? From a legal standpoint.
But that's not what
Well-
it says, Dr. Blackburn.
What does it say?
It says DEF shall immediately seek reinstatement of its 501c3 status with the United States Internal Revenue Service and shall notify the superintendent of schools upon reattainment of DES own 501c3 status, providing proof of the same. The DEF shall provide the superintendent of designee with copies of all correspondence sent by the United States Internal Revenue Service to DEF. So all it says, all they're agreeing to is that shall immediately seek reinstatement. We understand that they have sought the reinstatement and that basically because of the shutdown, they haven't received the letter, but our lawyer said that everything was in order and submitted and that they fully expected it to receive. So this doesn't say that they have it.
What page were you reading
So I'm
from?
looking at section 3, page 5.
Section 3 on page 5.
ADF obligations related to tax exempt status.
Dr. Blackburn, while you're looking at that, I also have to say that an attorney worked on creating this MOU, and we vetted this through her to understand if it was ready to bring to the board based on the information that we currently have, and knowing that we don't have the determination letter, not because we didn't submit the things that needed to be submitted, but because just of the situation we're in.
So I guess I'm reading on page 1. Dallas, under recitals, Dallas ISD is a political subdivision of the state of Texas and a public school system located in Texas. It may accept charitable donations pursuant to the United States Internal Revenue Section Code 107B1A. DEF is a Texas nonprofit organization founded in 2006, organized exclusively for the education and charitable purposes and to receive and distribute funds for the benefit of Dallas ISD. It is exempt from federal income tax pursuant to the United States Internal Revenue Code. What gives them that exemption right now?
It is a Texas nonprofit.
It is exempt from federal income taxation pursuant to the United States Internal Revenue Code.
And it's also a recital, so it's not part of the agreement.
It's not part of what?
It's a recital. It's part of the agreement.
So recitals
It's a
means-
recitation before the agreement begins.
So let's go back to page 5 then. I'm waiting for our district legal to at least speak up too. I just have some concerns that things are not quite in place yet. And I would think that waiting until next month after the government opens up and we get that we'll be good. You guys don't think that'll happen?
That's a big if the government opens up.
Of course it will. Everybody's throwing out up there.
I'd like to make a motion.
So trustee Marshall has the floor.
Excuse me. I'd like to make a motion that we postpone this matter until next month.
Mr. President's point of order.
Yeah.
That motion would be out of hand at the moment only because trustee Marshall hasn't spoken. You could make that on the second round, but just technically, just so that we follow the rules technically, you will be able to make that motion, but at the very least, trustee Marshall, because we're in the first round still, or trustee Foreman, or whoever hasn't spoken on this issue would have to speak about that first. Yeah, no, they do.
Yes,
The Robert's Rules of
Yes,
Order.
they do.
They do in the first round, they do.
Trustee Marshall?
It's per our rules. Just.
Thank you, Mr. President. I certainly wouldn't support any motion to postpone. I just wanted to start by thanking Pam. This has been a very long and difficult undertaking, and I know you've been really put through the ringer, and I know I've been pushing you for quite some time to get this thing restarted, and I'm very grateful, Pam, that you've stuck with it and got us what I believe to be a very strong contract and teed this up for success in a manner that has never been teed up before. So just want to start by saying thank you. I also just want to make a few comments. I think the TRE was an opportunity for Dallas voters to make it really clear how they feel about investing in public education. And all four of our propositions passed overwhelmingly. We've never seen that level of support in the district. We've also never seen the level of support from the business community with 69 different partners for our early college high schools, all of which are volunteering their employee time, their energy, their job openings, but haven't been asked for any money, which is a huge opportunity. I also would point out that from a philanthropic and foundation perspective, we're one of the most philanthropic cities in the world. We just set another record, as we have every year for the past 5 years, with North Texas Giving Day. So between individual donors, between foundations, between the business community, it's very clear that we're in a very philanthropic city and a time when people are very interested in supporting what we're doing in the ISD. And I believe that we need to give these donors a way to give to the district. Austin ISD raises $28 million per year through their educational foundation, and they have a business environment that pales in comparison to Dallas. So there's no reason we can't reach for that and at some point exceed it. I also think all of our local suburban ISDs are drastically outraising us on a per student basis. So this is the time for us to get this right. And just because it's had a few false starts in the past doesn't mean that it will this time. We've had leadership issues in the past that will be righted if we can get the great ED in place. So I just want to make it clear that I'll be very supportive of this, and I'm very grateful that the administration has worked so hard to bring it forward. I also just have a couple questions for you, Pam. Almost every one of the legal questions that you were just asked by trustees Blackburn and trustee Pinkerton have been asked over the course of several months, and I think most of those questions arose from some legal documents that were shared with the board that were almost a year old. And so as a response to that, I believe you brought in the same attorneys that wrote those original documents that prompted those same questions and had them speak with our board. And I'm curious what advice that those attorneys gave us. Did the attorneys say that any of those legal questions are valid, or did the attorneys say that we should proceed with this document and that it's actually a best-in-class example of a contract for an education foundation in Texas?
Well, the attorney said that this document was ready to come to the board to be approved. They said that the attorney had given us several recommendations. We went through the recommendations, thoroughly, line by line, and we followed the attorney's advice for everything that she asked us to do. And when the attorney came to speak, she gave her approval that this MOU was solid.
Right, and that's not just one attorney, right? You had the original attorneys who drafted the agreement and then sought a second legal opinion from the attorney who had previously raised the same questions that trustee Pinkerton and trustee Blackburn just raised.
Correct.
And not only the first attorney, but the second one said that the agreement was state-of-the-art and ready to be voted on.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Yeah, and we also had a foundation expert who was an advisor or most of the large urban foundations in Texas come speak to the board. What did she say?
She said the same thing. And,
Right.
I mean, and she does represent many districts in Texas.
Okay.
And is
Okay.
nationally
I just want to be clear that these questions have been asked and answered, and it's been going on for a year. So I just want to reflect on the fact that this is an entity that we are partnering with, made up of volunteers who want to raise money for DISD kids that will be donated to help us improve our service to kids so that we can drive improvement in student outcomes. The fact that it appears that this won't be a unanimous vote, especially after almost a year of trustees being able to ask questions and help to shape this agreement, is frankly absurd to me. And lastly, I just want to also let any DEF board members who are watching know that a few trustees don't speak for this board. And when this partnership passes, as I suspect that it will, you should know that the majority of us appreciate your efforts to raise money on behalf of our kids as volunteers. And we know that you don't have to do this. And frankly, we have firsthand knowledge of what it means to volunteer your time for kids. So we appreciate what you're doing. We're eager to do it with you. And if we can help you in any way, we will. So thanks so much. That concludes my questions, Mr. President.
Thank you. Trustee Solis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This may be a question for Ramona, and it's not a rhetorical question. I truthfully do not know the answer to this. So this is an MOU that is yet to be signed by the DEF board president. It requires first the approval from this board before it's sent to the DEF board president for that individual signature, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The idea that in the recital, DEF is established as a Texas nonprofit corporation, what are the implications of a signed MOU in which, at the date signed, that second paragraph in the recital is not accurate?
Well, if you look at page 5 of the MOU, there's several provisions that clearly state that they will seek reinstatement. They, again, shall obtain and maintain. So these are things that we expect them to do as part of the agreement.
Great. Okay. Second question I have is, were the recital to state that DEF is a pending Texas nonprofit corporation, and in the second sentence, it will be exempt from federal income taxation pursuant to the United States Internal Revenue Code, were it to say that, does that blow up the agreement?
No, that's a simple change that we can make.
That would be a simple change that you could make. Now, because I didn't think that this was an issue when I was going through this process, I did not submit a motion to amend this particular memorandum of understanding. And if we pass this tonight, the language will be what the language is. Were Victor Vital to receive this and determine that there needed to be a change to that particular language to make sure that it is factually accurate by the time that he sends it, then that would need to be sent back to the board for ratification as well, correct?
I think it's simpler than that. I think you can make the change now and then sign it and then have them look at the change because they've had an opportunity to already review this particular contract.
Okay.
Those simple changes would be reviewed and approved by their board.
Okay, so now I have a question for, I think I need a parliamentary inquiry. So Faye, given our current rules as stated by board policy, which supersede Robert's Rules of Order, though not necessarily certain motions within Robert's Rules of Order, such as suspending the rules, what process would a board member take to attempt to try to add 2 words to this memorandum of understanding without having submitted an amendment prior to this board meeting?
Based on our rules, that the board would have to agree to those particular changes. They could be a unanimous change that
Or
everyone
without
would agree to.
without objection?
Yes, without objection, or we'd have to have a motion to suspend the rules.
Suspend the rules. And that requires how many votes by the board?
It's just a majority by our rules.
A majority vote. Okay, so Mr.
Correct.
President, I would offer
if there is no objection, the insertion of just a few words. On page 1 of the MOU, under recitals, paragraph 2, I would insert the word,
So can I, no, go finish.
I would insert the word pending after the word A and before the word Texas.
I'm going to object to that
Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely.
Why?
because it's not accurate.
right, I was going to say. Go
It
ahead.
it is a nonprofit corporation.
That part is true.
Okay.
There's no
That
question about
percentage
that.
is
There's
not-
no waiting on the IRS for that.
Right. I was going to point that out, that there are two different things going on. There's tax exempt corporate status under the state of Texas, and there's your IRS tax exempt status. DEF is in fact a nonprofit Texas corporation founded in 2006. That is true, because that's how it was created. That's as an entity, that is its legal construct. It's the second sentence that says, you know, is exempt from, we would say, is seeking exemption from.
There you go. Okay, so then let me
So that'd be a little-
offer.
So really, it's only the second sentence.
Okay, so then let me offer, if there's no objection, if there is, I'm prepared to utilize the rules.
I object.
Okay, then I'm
Too
prepared.
often, I've tried to make changes at this board
Okay.
table, and you guys have always objected. So
Okay.
I object.
I appreciate the objection, so I'll ask, when I submit the amendment, when I submit that we move to suspend the rules, I'll ask for your support. It requires a majority vote. So, Mr. Chair, I move that we suspend the rules related to board policy that states an amendment must be submitted prior to the board meeting.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I don't think there's any discussion on suspending the rules.
Okay.
Do we need to have a
So we're
vote?
going to do a hand vote?
Yes.
Machine.
Machine vote. Okay.
I vote to suspend.
Trustee Michike? The motion passes, 6 voting yes and 2 voting no.
Okay, so under recitals, Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to amend paragraph 2, sentence 2. After the word is, I would insert the word seeking, and I would add the letters I-O-N after the word exempt.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by trustee Marshall. Any discussion on the motion?
The only thing I
Well,
would say to
there's-
that is I believe that
I
that
would
accurately
believe-
reflects what we're
Right.
doing currently at the time of the signing of our end of the MOU.
Well, if there are no objections, then it would pass unanimously. Is there an objection?
Yes.
Okay, so then we're going to vote.
I vote yes.
Motion.
The motion passes, 7 voting yes and 1 voting no.
That's all that I have to say, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Trustee Henry?
I just have a question as we're interpreting the legal aspects of this agreement. Are recitals legally binding?
I don't believe so.
Okay. I don't think they are either.
Trustee Mitchell?
I want to thank the administration for addressing a number of the concerns that I had and expressed in the board briefing. I think that we're on the right track now. I would request that we monitor the foundation much more closely than in the past, because we did have expenses exceeding revenue, a small amount, but what we need to see is revenue exceeding expenses by a huge amount. And I think, you know, given what we see in other foundations, in other districts, that there's a huge opportunity to tap into the goodwill of this community and the support of our public schools. So appreciate you addressing the issues. I urge you to monitor DEF very closely so that we can keep track of how we're doing. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Mishka. Trustee Pinkerton? Or Trustee Foreman, whoever wants to go next. Trustee Pinkerton.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah, I've had the first
Trustee
time.
Foreman.
Go ahead, Peter, then I'll go.
Okay. All right, well, picking up where I left off, I do have a question about the state tax exempt documents. That's one of the other provisions, and I think the information we received, is it correct that Dallas Education Foundation never had its tax exempt status from the state of Texas?
Trustee Pinkerton, I don't believe that's accurate, but again, I would want to check that to give you...
There's no indication has received tax exempt status in Texas, separate from tax exempt status under federal law. My understanding is that DEF's never received that tax exempt status. Do you know, going forward, as of this moment, have all the documents and proper paperwork been filled out?
Absolutely. I mean,
For the state's tax exempt status?
Everything that we need to have completed and submitted has been submitted. And again, you know, I think all of us want, if we're going to go on to this endeavor, we want to make sure that it's successful. And so administration has worked with attorneys, and you've met some of them, and we've asked all the questions. We've looked at the MOU. We've looked at everything that needs to be turned in, and working with both attorneys and consultants who specialize in education foundations. To my knowledge, we've submitted everything that's necessary.
Okay, thank you. There's been some reference made to this contract being the very best in class, the state of the art, et cetera. I don't recall hearing those terms used when we were briefed on this. Did our attorney recommend that DEF hire its own employees?
So the attorney had several recommendations, and she had her first recommendation, and then she had a second, and she had a third. And so we opted to go. So can I answer the question? The attorney did make a recommendation to have, for Dallas Education Foundation to have their own employees.
Right, and that was her first recommendation, which we opted not to do. Did the attorney recommend that DEF rent its own space?
That was a recommendation.
Right, and we opted not to do it. Did the attorney recommend that DEF revise its agreement with the Dallas Foundation?
And that's what we've done.
You've revised the agreement with the Dallas Foundation?
Well, DEF has an agreement with the Dallas Foundation.
Right.
Dallas ISD doesn't.
Right, and so did the attorney recommend that DEF revise its agreement with DF?
And can you give me the revisions that you're, well, not a hint, just tell me the revisions that you're referring to.
Yeah, so there were a number of recommendations made, and that was one of them. And I'm not aware, we're certainly not getting those documents, but do you know if DEF has revised its agreement with the Dallas Foundation? There were certain provisions that the attorney thought that should be
And we are
clarified, and in the event of DEF dissolving, where money would go and those kinds of things. Were those issues addressed?
We addressed all of the issues that the attorney felt that there were concerns. And when we were done, then her final words were that while no agreement is foolproof, I do believe it is a much stronger agreement than you've had in the past, with more protective measures in the past to protect the district. It has transparency and checks and balances than previous agreements. And so she's indicated that what we have is a solid MOU and an
Right,
agreement.
so she had her highest recommendation.
Dr. Lear, I'm going to ask to caution you not to violate the attorney-client privilege. That was confidential information that should only be shared in closed section. We don't want to compromise that. So we cannot talk about some of the attorney's advice in open session, please.
Okay, thank you. I would feel more comfortable with this agreement and could be more in support of this if DEF had its tax exempt status from both the federal government and the state government. Can you tell us why we don't have tax exempt status right now from the state government? Because it's not shut down.
You get federal exemptions from the federal government, the tax exempt aspect. You don't get it from the state.
There's also a state tax exempt status that apparently DEF never got. So
It's my
that's the
understanding
part I'm
that
talking about.
we had all clearances from the Secretary of State for the state of Texas. What was pending is the federal
Correct, IRS.
IRS letter
Right.
because of the shutdown. My understanding is that we have received all the state documents.
Me too.
That's the last meeting I went to that had been verified.
That's true.
So is that new? This is part of the agreement. I'm on page 5, DEF's obligations. Number 3, the DEF agrees to become up to date on all state nonprofit filings on its behalf. You just said you filed the paperwork. Now I'm hearing maybe that this paperwork, that the approval did come in, or do we know that for a fact, or are we assuming we had it in the past?
No, the only thing that we're waiting on is IRS, the determination letter.
The state
Everything
has
else
been resolved.
has been.
Our
right.
consultant said she had that in hand.
Yes.
The one that had not been
Okay.
resolved is the federal.
Okay, great. So again, I'd feel more comfortable with this if we were contracting with an organization that had its 501c3 tax exempt status, so I'll make a motion. It may not be supported, but I move that we postpone this item to next month's agenda.
You have a motion and a second. Trustees, any questions about that? If not,
I have a question.
sure.
The mental gymnastics that Trustee Pinkerton is going through here are astonishing to me. I just want to be very clear, Pam. The legal opinion on which all of the questions that she is asking are based was written by the exact same attorney who came to the board and said, this agreement is good to go, please sign it.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and the references that she just made to, that they had some other recommendations that, we ignored, was the commentary from the attorney that every other education foundation that she has dealt with has ignored that same advice and done exactly what we're doing in this contract?
Pam, can't answer that one.
Can't answer that one. So Dustin, sorry, but I'm going to call you out of order because we're talking about the motion to postpone. So you have to comment on the motion to postpone. Anybody, Trustee Foreman, you want to comment on the motion to postpone? Are we ready to vote?
I do, because
Okay, please.
I'm having a real difficult time up here while Trustee Marshall continues to attack Trustee Pinkerton for having her opinion. She made a motion. She has a right to make a motion, and I'm about tired of it. I am tired of it. She has every right to have her opinion up here, just like everyone else has their right to have their opinion. There was no hollering and screaming when Trustee Solis wanted to make a motion out of order. Stop it. No, Trustee Marshall, we do not represent everybody, but you do not either. Stop it.
Trustees, please cast your vote. So we're voting on the motion to postpone.
I vote no.
The motion fails, 3 voting yes and 5 voting no.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, Trustee Solis.
I have a question about currently, the role of the Dallas Foundation, okay, as it is established right now with the current dynamics of the Dallas Education Foundation. When entities are seeking nonprofit status, and they do not have it at the moment, but intend on executing on their mission, they go to an entity like the Dallas Foundation. Most nonprofits that are started do not, in fact, probably all nonprofits that are created start not as nonprofits because they have to seek nonprofit status, but they establish their work, their mission, and many of them just do their work, but they have to find a fiduciary intermediary. I mean, having been in the nonprofit world for some time, I think that's how traditionally, that it's not always the case, but traditionally that's how these things manifest themselves. Because the process to try to secure the tax exempt status from the IRS sometimes can be a fairly lengthy process. You've got to create bylaws, you've got to go get a board, you've got to take particular actions to pass that information, to pass the actions and then submit things to the IRS and prove that you've established a board and prove that you've taken action. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the reason why I voted not to postpone is not because I do not share some of the hesitation that Trustee Pinkerton, or that my colleague has suggested. I do think we need to ensure that the Dallas Education Foundation secures its tax exempt status.
Agreed.
But because we've dictated directly in here, in the MOU, that it is incumbent upon them to do it, and if they do not get that tax exempt status, my read of this is a moot relationship at that point. But that there is the Dallas Foundation that allows this entity, as it has allowed a whole host of other entities, to operate as a nonprofit through them. Because that relationship exists, that's why I'm comfortable signing this MOU to date. There's an accountability measure in here. You have to get IRS status. If the IRS comes back and says that we're not going to give you the status, this is a moot agreement.
Point of information, and Trustee Solis, thank you, because I appreciate that you understand the hesitancy. But I think we need to clarify one critical point, and that is whether having the Dallas Foundation as your fiduciary partner allows you to operate as a nonprofit.
No, that's not what I was
What were you
saying. As a
saying?
point of information, that's
Yeah.
not what I was saying.
Yeah.
What I was saying is, the Dallas Foundation is a nonprofit.
Correct.
It serves as a fiduciary intermediary for entities that are seeking nonprofit status that want to execute their mission, but do not have nonprofit status at that point. They partner with and contract with the Dallas Foundation so that they can execute their mission and make sure that they remain legal in doing that, incurring donations. Those donations go to the Dallas Foundation, and then from there, the Dallas Foundation distributes those dollars to an entity who seeks to do and execute its mission, as like the Dallas Education Foundation would do. We would not get those dollars if our mission was not being executed to the T. Dallas Foundation would be violating tax-exempt laws. They could not distribute dollars to us if we were not doing it to full fidelity of the Dallas Education Foundation's mission. So that's, to answer the point of information, that's how that relationship works. But again, if it gets to the point where we do not receive, the Dallas Education Foundation does not receive its IRS status, not only do I not feel comfortable with the Dallas Education Foundation moving forward, we can't move forward because this MOU immediately becomes moot.
And so I just want to make sure that I understand your answer. So is your point that donations made to this cause, I'll just say that broadly, that are checks paid to Dallas Foundation in the DEF account there, they would be, say, tax deductible to the donor and
To the
those
donor, that's
kinds
right.
of things. I see what you're saying.
And they would be earmarked by that entity to the Dallas Foundation to do X action.
The DEF.
That would be then acted upon by DEF.
Okay,
And if
understand.
DEF does not execute that mission to full fidelity, based on the earmark from the entity, the institution, or the private philanthropist that's giving the dollars to the Dallas Foundation, then the Dallas Foundation can't give those dollars to DEF, or if DEF does not use it in sticking with the intent of the donor, then we would be breaking the law, because we are not fulfilling the covenant that we've established with that donor and the Dallas Foundation.
Thank you for clarifying.
You bet. So that's why I feel comfortable right now supporting this, because I know that there is an accountability check within this MOU that states if we do not get IRS status, this is a moot agreement. And I also trust that the Dallas Education Foundation will execute whatever earmark that comes with dollars through the Dallas Foundation. I trust that they'll do it. And if they don't do it, we have bigger problems. Those are legal issues that then the Dallas Education Foundation has to deal with.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, trustees, any other?
Just one quick point of clarification. Since we have our attorney at the table, I just want to go back to something that I was asking earlier, but you weren't at the table, so I didn't really get an answer. If for some reason DEF does not get its federal nonprofit status, and if we have moved ahead with hiring someone or spending dollars on behalf of DEF, would that constitute a gift of public funds? I don't know, I'm just trying to ask the question.
Well, that has more to do with the agreement. If they're not doing what it's spelled out in the agreement, that would be a breach of the contractual duties, which is different from gift of public funds. Right here, we outlined that it's not a gift of public funds. That's why the MOU reads the way it does. Because when you vote on this and you decide you want to move forward, you have adopted what it says here, which it goes through the three-step process of discussing why you don't believe it's a gift of public funds. It's stated in this document.
Okay, so as long as we have the MOU in place, then investments in this cause generally are not a gift of public funds, even in the case that DEF were to never gain its federal nonprofit status.
Well, it's my understanding that they're seeking that, and it's just a matter, it's a formality, they're just waiting for the documentation.
I understand, I'm asking a hypothetical question. So hypothetically, if there was some objection by the federal government or something went wrong, is it true that in any case, with or without the 501c3, investments we make here would not be a gift of public funds?
May I, just as a point of information, may I attempt to answer that question? Not a lawyer, but again, pretty well versed in nonprofit. This would not be public funds. These would be funds that find their way to a nonprofit. Again, this would be the Dallas Foundation that would then give those private dollars.
No.
I think I understand what Ms. Pinch is asking. It would be public dollars if we hired the executive director and then started spending that office.
Right.
So you have a commitment from us, we're not going to hire anybody until we get this thing cleared, in hand, the IRS clearance.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, that's what I wanted to know. That's what I wanted to know.
We will not hire anybody and start spending funds until we have that clearance in hand.
Just real quickly. So part of what you're asking tonight is actually to ratify dollars, which would have been called a gift of public funds, correct?
We are seeking ratification.
And how many dollars is that? What's the amount?
I submitted that in the tracker, and, it's on the actual...
Tracker came late.
No, this was, okay. So I have not to exceed $326,000.
And that was from the last MOU, correct?
Correct.
could be a gift of public funds if we don't ratify that, correct?
So,
Well, Ramona's sitting there, I think she's wanting to say something.
Well, that's already been done.
I didn't ask that question.
It could be.
That would have been considered a gift of public funds, correct?
Possibly.
And why are we ratifying?
Because that happened, and those dollars were spent. And so now that those dollars have been spent.
And one of the things we're trying not to do is get back in that same position.
Correct. Correct.
I just wanted to clarify that there is a gift of public funds that we're going to try to ratify. Well, you guys are going to ratify tonight because I'm not voting for it. But there was a possibility of a gift of public funds. We don't need to dance around that. That's the truth, and that's an issue that you're trying to rectify. I get that. But the problem is that there are still a lot of questions that could put us right back in the same spot, and that's where I have a concern.
Okay, so I'm just going to just ask a couple quick questions. So what we have before us is the best effort and recommendation of experts in this field, our attorneys, who all say that this is the path to move forward to be able to get access to potentially millions of dollars in donations that a great board and great people and volunteers are going to help us seek. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And to date, every penny that has been donated is subject to 501c3 because it was, the fiscal agent was the Dallas Foundation, which has 501c3 and is all completely buttoned up, and absolutely nobody has anything to worry about it.
Correct.
Right. And so then this is our attempt to restart DEF, to be able to tap into, as Trustee Marshall said, this just vibrant and powerful philanthropic community that we have here in Dallas.
Yes.
In fact, I would say that there are a few cities in the United States, or the world for that matter, that have the kind of philanthropy and the kind of amazing volunteers and people, many of which are on this foundation board, who are fantastic people and are ready, willing, and able to help us, restart this thing and just take it to the next level. Is that correct?
Yes.
So a vote for this is a vote for this board to tell our community, we're getting this right, and we're open for business, and we're going to keep an eye on what we're doing through our monthly, board agenda and our budget briefings, and with the oversight that we've been advised is the right kind of oversight to run this operation.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. Trustees, please cast your vote.
For the main motion as amended.
I vote yes.
Ms. Foreman. No? I'm marking it? Okay. The motion passes 7 voting yes and 1 voting no.
Okay, trustees, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is 9.06, consider and take possible action to authorize, negotiate, and enter into an agreement with an additional supplier for professional development consulting services for district-wide use. No additional funding required. Consent item 8.21, pulled by trustees Joyce Foreman and Lou Blackburn. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion by Mischke, a second by Flores. Trustees, any questions?
Just a quick statement.
Trustee Foreman.
Yvonne, and procurement. This is a statement and an observation. Too often, the district's purchasing department, being directed by other departments within the district add on items or vendors to current contracts that we have. I am concerned about the vetting process, and the vetting process for me is not that the user department sees somebody that they want to use and bring them to the purchasing department. The vetting takes place, for me, in the purchasing department. Because just adding vendors, we're not going through a process. And I've seen it happen too often. And what I'd like to see this district do is, through this procurement committee that you're setting up, is to begin to look at that and have some stipulations and some regulations on how you add additional vendors to an existing contract, because they must be vetted to make sure that they should be on there, and the user department is not the vetting agent. That's a statement.
I just want to endorse what Trustee Foreman just suggested. I think it's a very practical suggestion and a great, the committee's a great place for this to be considered. We definitely have a lot of opportunity to tighten up our procurement practices and make sure that we are being as competitive as we can be, while at the same time recognizing that sometimes situations do arise that would cause it to be in the best interest of the district to make some sort of change. So what that practice and procedure needs to look like to make sure that we have a competitive process, I think is something that's well worth the committee's attention.
Trustee Solis?
I'd reiterate what my two colleagues just said.
Any other questions? I'm just going to make a very quick one. I think it is very important that we know what the people on the ground in the schools need and want. And I think that it's very important that we ask them and that we know what kind of materials, which I don't even know what this thing is for. But I would not divorce the purchasing process from knowing what our schools and our students need at the school level and what our teachers want and need, and just do this as just a perfunctory purchasing function. I think we need to be able to marry the two, and we need to be able to have a process that addresses the concerns of the trustees, but also does not ignore what the people who are actually going to be using whatever this thing is think is a good idea and what they think. Now, that's not the end-all and be-all. People have to run through a process, has to be bid according to all the procedures and state laws and everything else. So with that, trustees, please cast your vote.
To add on to or to correct some of the things that you said, I never said that the user department does not have the ability to look at what they need. That is not what I am referring to. Being an ex-purchasing agent, the purchasing people know what I'm talking about. They know exactly what I'm talking about. I've never said the user department doesn't have the ability to bring to the purchasing department something. That's what happens up here so much. You guys just don't understand. We make a statement, and it's always misconstrued. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Foreman. Trustees, please cast your vote.
I vote yes.
Thank you, Trustee Marshall.
The motion passes 8-0.
Okay, trustees, and we're on to item 9.07, consider and take possible action to authorize, negotiate, and enter into agreements with multiple vendors for the purchase of student and staff computing devices, charger cards for district-wide use, including deployment and other services not to exceed $96,500,000 over 5 years, including renewal options, general operating bonds, special revenue funds. Consent item 8.26, pulled by trustees Joyce Foreman, Lou Blackburn, Audrey Pinkerton. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Trustee Mitchke moved, trustee Marshall second. Trustees, any questions?
Some comments.
Trustee Foreman.
Hey, Jack.
Good evening.
Thank you for responding to my questions. But I will reiterate my concerns about this overall process. The first concern is that you are bringing forth a $100 million technology plan that was never voted on by this board. That is a concern. It was presented, but never voted on by this board. You're talking about spending, is it $40 million possibly a year? Because in year 2020, 2021, you show the remaining balance would be at $38 million. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, ma'am. In 2021, that's actually when we run out of the 2015 bond funds, if we keep spending towards this plan.
So basically, you're talking about $91.6 million actual or $100 million?
So 91.6 was the starting balance at the beginning of this school year.
Okay, so the difference would come from outside of the construction bonds, right?
Well, at this point, we haven't identified where the funding gap would come from between the 100 million and the 146 that would be required to complete the plan.
Jack, what is the, for the devices, and for those who don't understand, what he's talking about is a one-to-one device for all 155,000 children in this district. So what is the technology changes?
Yes, ma'am.
Like you buy a phone and it's gone because the technology changed. So what is the warranty on these devices that we'll be talking about?
It varies depending on the type of device. Most tablets come with a 1-year warranty. We see 3-year warranties on the laptop devices and the desktop devices. And of course, vendors are happy to offer extended warranties if we want them.
Yeah, because you pay for them. So the 1-year warranty would be on the tablets.
Yes, ma'am.
So it would be a 3-year warranty on Chromebooks?
Actually, it's different with different vendors. So some vendors offer a 1-year standard warranty on a Chromebook. Other vendors, for example, Dell was offering a 3-year warranty for Dallas ISD.
So my concern is this is an extremely aggressive plan, which again doesn't address all of the needs that I think need to be looked at first. The district, the administration has made a decision that devices come first. But I will share with you, and I've told you before, that there are some schools that have devices locked up because they can't use them. They don't have the bandwidth. And so why are we rushing for devices when we can't even get the ones that we have used? That just makes no sense to me. And you don't have to, that's rhetorical. I get it. I'll be voting against it.
Thank you. I just want to start out with the question generally. Trustee Foreman noted that we didn't actually vote on this plan, and of course there's a lot of detailed level things that we wouldn't really get into, but just wondering if there's still an opportunity for input in terms of maybe what direction we're going.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So we have adopted a standard, but I don't think that it's set in stone, and I think you had made the recommendation, as we've been discussing this, that perhaps I think I'd heard the idea that we go out to the community and host some information sessions to tell them, inform folks about the plan, how it ended up. I think that's a fantastic idea. We would love to do that. So no, I don't think we're closed off to input at any time during the implementation over the next 3 years. I mean, we've made assumptions, but we're going to learn as we go through this process together, and we'll make adjustments.
Okay. And I did reach out to my community, and I'd just like to briefly share with you 4 points that I think consensus items that they made to me. So I'm bringing this back to you.
Okay.
So the first item has to do with screen time. So there was definitely some concern about studies that show that too much screen time is bad for kids. And the younger the kid, the least amount of screen time it takes to be, quote, bad. And so the group really wanted to see some kind of limits or guidelines for the district around screen time for kids, whether that be at school or at home, either way. The second has to do with this direction that we're heading, which is that some devices could be taken home. And so they were talking about the need for parent training, especially for parents who maybe don't speak English or don't have this kind of technology in their homes, to really understand what it means when this device is coming home, and maybe what their role should be in having that device at home. So requiring a parent to go through the training is a positive measure before taking a device home would be one suggestion. The third thing had to do with our infrastructure. So I know you've been working on trying to make sure that we have the right infrastructure throughout our facilities, and Wi-Fi is one of them. What's your impression of where we are in the process of fixing the Wi-Fi or ensuring Wi-Fi reliability in our schools?
Would you like me to answer that one?
Yeah.
And I can circle back around to the other two. We're making progress, and so I've mentioned on several occasions that we hired an independent consultant to come in and assess our Wi-Fi. In fact, Trustee Foreman, Atwell was one of the schools that we went and we did a deep dive assessment on that campus to see what was going on. And so we have the draft report. It's very close to final at this point. And we've learned some things about our Wi-Fi configuration. And these are very actionable steps, configuration changes, things that we can do differently with the equipment that we already have that will not require additional investments to improve the experience with Wi-Fi at the campuses. So we understand what the problems are now. We have a path to fix the problems, and actually we've started. So my team has already deployed some configuration changes to the Wi-Fi. We have more planned for this weekend, and that process will continue. And it won't always be the same for each campus. Some campuses are going to require more work than others, but we're committed to working through those campuses and getting the Wi-Fi issue straightened out.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. There's definitely comments coming from people who work in our schools saying, all these new devices are great, but our Wi-Fi doesn't work, so we're not going to be able to use them. So
and part of it
that's
too,
an important part.
and I would just add that part of it too is related to older devices, because as technology changes very rapidly, there's new Wi-Fi standards. The old devices aren't compatible with the new Wi-Fi channels and things like that. And so that it is. I mean, there's more than one issue with the Wi-Fi, but we do understand the issues and we are working through them.
Okay, that's great. And then the final point has to do with the Plan A and the Plan B that we looked at back in August. So, and I don't remember which was A and which was B, or maybe I'm just making up the fact that they had designations of A and B, but there was one called A that I think it was 141 million or something like that.
146.
146, which was one-to-one student-to-device ratio in all grade levels. And then there was the other one that was the 96 million or so that was one-to-one at the upper grades, but then 1-3.
Correct.
Okay. So the community members that I heard from, this is a consensus, looked at those two plans, and they all leaned in favor of reaching all the schools with the money we have now with a 1-3 at the lower grades and a 1-1 at the upper grades. They felt they love the fact that we are focusing on technology. They all felt technology is very important in our learning environments, but and there's no, I'm sure, right or wrong answer to this, but just for feedback purposes, they all felt like it was important to cover all the schools with the money we have now, with sacrificing the student-to-device ratio at the lower grades. So for whatever it's worth, I'm passing that on.
No, I appreciate that, and I would make a couple quick comments, because what may not have been obvious, there are some differences between, obviously, Plan A and Plan B, and it isn't just the devices, right? So if we do go to something less than a 1-to-1 device at the lower grade levels, the issue with that becomes, and you have to think forward for a minute. I know that you guys haven't seen this yet, but you have to think of what the next generation of our instructional materials, right? We are kind of in this transition between paper textbooks and digital, right, instructional materials. And if we end up with any ratio that's less than 1-to-1, it kind of precludes us, or let me frame it the other way, it requires us to continue to have to buy paper textbooks for the next generation, and we'd rather not do that. So there is an added advantage to having a device for every student, because then you really can start to forego the paper textbooks. You can save money in that process, and you can expand the amount of content, educational content that we offer our students. So that's another reason for going 1-to-1 even at the lower grade levels. And the other difference I would remind folks between option A and option B was the displays in the classrooms. And that's actually a really important point, because when we did survey all of the teachers and all the administrators in the campuses when we developed this plan, they weighed in heavily that they value those digital display boards that we would achieve in the $146 million plan. We wouldn't get there that far in the $92 million plan. And so we would end up, unfortunately, with campuses, some classrooms that have technology and some classrooms that don't have technology. And so we're working very hard to try to get to a point where every student, every classroom, every teacher has the same technology experience. And that's kind of the beauty of the $146 million plan, but of course there is the money.
Right, of course, we don't have the money to execute that plan, and I think that's the downside to it. It's interesting that you brought up the paper textbooks versus digital, because that was a theme that did come out from this group, that they were very concerned that paper books, and I don't know that they were talking specifically about textbooks, but just books for kids to read, the idea of going to the library and taking a book off the shelf. And maybe I sound like a dinosaur to you right now as I'm saying that, but this was something that parents of young children really valued and cherished, and they absolutely do not want to see paper books going away.
And I don't think anyone's talking about taking paper books out of libraries. I'm saying as we buy our next generation of textbooks for classrooms in support of the curriculum, we'd like to do more digital content instead of just textbooks, or both, right? Because you can't stretch your dollar as far.
Okay, thank you.
And your other 2 points are well taken on screen time and working with parents for students that take home devices. So points well taken. We'll certainly factor and work on those things.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Henry?
Yeah, and I'll be brief. Just want to support Trustee Pickett's idea around the young kids and their screen time and how we're using those. So I'm sure the team is thinking about that, but I just want to reiterate that. And the second piece is people might not have internet at home, but a lot of people have mobile phones. So to the extent we might use this technology, I didn't mention this in any of our briefings, but that we could use this technology to actually bridge the gap between the school and the families, or maybe a kid can do something in the class and then send it to the parent. I know there's apps for that. Just a way to connect the school and the family. So someone in the middle of the day can look at their mobile phone and see something that their child has done in class. So I don't know if we're thinking about how we use those mobile devices in that way, but I know there's apps for that.
Okay. Again, thank you. Point well taken.
Okay, trustees, please cast your vote.
I vote yes.
Thank you, Trustee Marshall.
The motion passes, 7 voting yes and 1 voting no.
Thank you, trustees. Next item is 9.09, consider and take possible action to enter into an interlocal agreement with the Board of Education of the City School District of the City of New York, New York City Public Schools, over 3 years, no funding required. Consent item 8.33, pulled by trustees Joyce Foreman and Lou Blackman. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
It's moved by Mitch K., second by Solis and/or Marshall. Questions? Trustee Foreman.
Just a comment. The way it's worded is somewhat troubling. It just says to enter into an interlocal agreement with the Board of Education of the City Schools of New York. I would like to see it go on to speak to what we're talking about, and that's for our Dallas ISD's Food and Child Nutrition Services Department. So there's a clear understanding of what we're trying to do. So if I pick the document up, I know what you're doing. If I'm looking at this the way it is, that doesn't tell me anything. So I'd like to see that.
Yes, ma'am. I agree.
And I'm good.
Just more additional information in
Yeah,
the
just
agenda title.
an agenda item, just clarifying so you know, have a good idea of what you're doing. And I'm good.
Any other questions? If not, please cast your vote.
I was looking, I was like, what?
Trustee Henry, we need a voice vote from you.
I vote yes. 7C.
The motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, trustees. Last item, I think this is the last item on the agenda. Yeah, last item on the agenda is 9.10, consider and take possible action to approve the recommended school closure of Tom W. Field ES, non-academic recess space utilization level with approval of attendance zone changes for Jose Joe May Elementary School and Julian T. Saldivar Elementary School beginning the 2019-2020 school year and waive board policy EHBD local consent item 8.34 pulled because it's a new item. Trustees, do I have a
Put
motion?
it back on there.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second? Second.
Second.
Marshall, so Mitch K. moved, Marshall second. Trustees, any comments or questions? Trustee Foreman.
Stephanie, hope you're feeling better.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope, I actually listened very closely to your presentation. And while I clearly have some understanding of what you're trying to do, as a practical matter, I have a real issue with closing schools, particularly elementary schools. And so I won't be voting for this because I just think that when we, even though they're coming from this transient community, these young children are going to be put on buses and they're going to continue to have to be moved around and it's going to take more time. That just doesn't work for me. Other trustees are probably not going to agree with me, and that's fine with me. I'm used to being that way. I'm an only child, so I'm good. But I just, for a practical matter, I have an issue with closing schools. Thank you.
Trustees, please cast your vote.
I vote yes.
Okay. Okay, try it now. No.
It's not coming up.
Okay. Yes?
My vote is yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Trustee Mitch K.
Yes.
Yeah, what's going on with this? Okay, and trustee Foreman, no, right? The motion passes 7 voting yes and 1 voting no.
Thank you, trustees. It is, the time is now 11:12 PM. I'm sorry, there's one more? No, 9.11 got put back onto the agenda. We voted on the consent agenda on 9/11.
Can I make what I guess the point of order? Can I request that when those items get put back on the consent agenda, which I realize is a time saving for all of us, can this online agenda be updated to reflect that so both we and the public can keep up with what's going on?
We'll see if we can execute that. We'll look at our IT department, see what we can do to get it more real time. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I read it out after it was brought to me, but I could understand why, yeah.
Okay, all right.
So just to clarify, so that last item, which got put back on the consent agenda, was consider and take possible action to approve innovative course application to offer African American Studies course during 2019-2020 school year. And it was pulled because it was a new item, but it got put back on the agenda, so it was approved on the consent agenda, correct? Yes, correct.
Okay.
Go ahead, trustee Pinkerton. So I misinterpreted that. Is there any possibility to do a round or speak on this briefly? I don't.
Well, I don't know. I don't think we can, because we already voted on it. Sorry about that. Next time.
Can't be out of order twice in one day.
I hope y'all check to make sure.
That's why I'm checking, so.
Okay.
But yes, we did vote for it on the consent agenda, right? So do a point of information.
Currently, under our policy, consent agenda items are not discussed. This particular item was moved back on the consent agenda, so the only way that it could be discussed is, again, if you did a suspension of the rules. So that would be up to the board, if you all want to suspend the rules to talk about that item that's already been voted on at this particular point.
So I guess I'm just reading, it was pulled because it's a new item.
Yes.
Actually, which means that we probably did not discuss it at the briefing.
Correct.
We did not discuss it at the briefing.
Correct.
So that's
So you're
why-
right, so we can't pull it. We
So
can't
that's
put it
why,
on-
so it's
Yeah.
pulled because it was not discussed at the briefing. So
Correct.
you can't put it back on because we hadn't discussed it.
Right, because we haven't, you're right. So I guess we have to, so it can't have been put on the consent agenda. See, Justin knew that, that's why. Okay, so trustees, we're not done yet, so we are going to vote on 9.11, consider and take possible action to approve innovative course application to offer African American Studies course during 2019-2022 school year. No financial impact, consent item 8.35 pulled because it was new item. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Kay, second by Marshall. Trustees, any comments? Trustee Henry.
First, thank you, Trustee Blackburn, for your knowledge, so that we have opportunity to speak on this. I wanted to thank, first, the district for creating the Racial Equity Office, and that predates me being on the board. I wanted to thank Mr. Williams and Jamuda, I think, or somewhere, they were here earlier, for leading the Racial Equity Office to get something like this passed. I think DIC is continuing to lead the way in a lot of different ways, and this is another way we continue to lead the way as far as making sure our district is really ensuring the success of all of our students, regardless of their ethnicity, background, or community. I wanted to read something that the co-chair of our task force in District 9 wrote to me via email. Her name's Amber Sims. She's been advocating for racial equity for years, probably pushing 8 or 9 years. Pam can probably attest to that. So her message to the trustees was, this email is to express my support for the African American curriculum developed for DISD students. In the efforts to provide racial equity, there must be an acknowledgement of the contributions and history of people of color in this country, especially African Americans. Understanding the complex and dynamic history of black people in this country is crucial to dismantling anti-black rhetoric and teachings, as well as providing students and teachers with a fundamental understanding of black culture through a prism of survival, strength, courage, and most importantly, the highest embodiment of American values we all hold to be true. Students learning this history will lead to the greater good of African American history being all of our history and our responsibility to never forget. With that being said, my highest hope is that you vote yes for this curriculum and support the full implementation. Sincerely, Amber Sims. I'm done.
Thank you, Trustee Henry. Any other trustees? Trustee Mitchke?
Yeah, I'm glad we're doing this. It's long overdue. Thank you.
Trustee Solis?
I agree. I share my colleagues' sentiments as well as Amber Sims. I think the only question I would have related to the work of the Racial Equity Department would be in creating this particular option. This now needs to go to the state so that the state can create the actual curriculum necessary to be able to institute or execute this program. Is that, I mean, I know I don't see anybody from the Racial Equity Department, but, yeah, okay. So the question that I would have to the Racial Equity Department, or actually to the administration via the Racial Equity Department, would be, you know, we've heard a lot about how, you know, there are marginalized communities that have been not included, the totality of the history had not been included in the current curriculum that we have, and that this is an option, this potentially would be an option for students to be able to take this through a self-selecting process or voluntary process. But I really would push us to seriously consider whether this type of curriculum should be something that all students should take. Not can choose to take. Because the way my interpretation of what we intend to do from an equity standpoint is to ensure that historically institutionalized inequities have to be resolved. And I think that it's incumbent upon us at the very least to consider the idea, and it may take some creativity, to make this something that kids in DISD have got to take before they leave DISD. So I would place that charge to the Racial Equity Department to at least consider that option. And it's my hope that something creative can be found. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Trustee Blackburn?
Well, I was going to say, I think Dr. Durant might have to weigh in on that to make it part of the requirements towards graduation. That's where I like to see it in policy, that it is actually required. When I was at Roosevelt High School, Coach James, I don't know if it was required by the school district or the school, but Coach James made sure we all had that class to learn about our history and our culture. And I think it should be a point whereby all students, even if we don't make it required towards graduation, make it well known that it is available at every school and not just at one school or two schools. So I look forward to this being offered at all of our schools come August. And I look forward to a year from now in February that students are celebrating what they know now, or what they will know about the African American people, how we got here, and why we are the way we are. Thank you.
Trustee Foreman?
Very quickly. We do so much talk, but when it comes to being fair by people of color, we don't get there. Everybody wants to jump in on an opportunity to talk about what we need to do. We're at this point because we haven't been doing what we need to do. I agree that it would be good, not just for African Americans to, Dr. Durant, to take this, just like it's not just good for Mexican Americans to take the Mexican American study. The only way we do better is we know better. The only way we come together is to recognize that we're closer than we think. And we get that through a historical perspective. I get so tired of lip service. Action is what we need to make sure we do better by all children. We can talk about racial equity all day long. Doesn't mean a thing if we don't have any action. I'd just like to see us do better.
Okay, trustees, well, let's take some action and let's vote on this item.
Okay, and they can vote. It's just not showing on the verity where it goes.
I vote yes.
Yes.
Ayes have it.
Okay.
Oh, here it is.
Yes. The motion passes 8-0.
Okay, trustees, we've approved the item unanimously. The time is now 11:22 Microsoft time, and this meeting is adjourned.
Grandkids don't eat much snacks.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, I'm a different person, though.